75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot.
I think you're looking at an extra layer this morning. You might go extra layer up top and down low here on this Wednesday morning. This might be the chilliest day of the year so far.
Yeah, I mean, I leave the house, and good morning to you fellas. It's 52 degrees. Now, I'm going to be warm during the show, but I slipped on a little Nike sweatshirt this morning. Still got the shorts. You know, it's fall. It's going to be fall soon. Well, it's not fall. It's going to be 93 degrees this week.
Nothing like radio dudes talking about their wardrobe. Yeah, I went extra layer down low.
Oh, you went down low? Okay.
Long Johns?
No, just some pants. I thought to myself last night, I'm like, damn, it is. I mean, there's no need for the AC unit here in the Bowen household tonight. So it is crispy, but as Andy said, it certainly is going to warm up here coming up this weekend.
I drove in with the heat on.
Yeah, that's not the craziest thought. I didn't go there, but yeah, that's not the craziest thought here on this Wednesday morning. Good Wednesday morning to you. Thanks for spending it with us. This is the Wake Up Call right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, and Mark Dykton. And we are now one day away from the Colts preseason coming to an end. And yesterday, I guess technically, it was their final training camp practice of the year, and we will rely on a lot of eyes and ears from down in Cincinnati. Stephen Holder going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I cannot wait to talk to Stephen coming up at 8 o'clock. I know he was boots on the ground there in Cincinnati, and, you know, by all reports, and we'll dive into it here, by all reports, KB, you know, early struggles, quite a few early struggles. I mean, at one point, Anthony Richardson is 3 of 10 with an interception, and you know, players from the Bengals defense were chirping. They were chirping at him. They were chirping at everybody else on the offense. And it's funny, you know, reading the reports and following on Twitter. Nate Atkins was on with JMV closer to the end of his show, kind of like right when practice was ending, which was kind of a good recap of what happened. I had to smile because it felt a little bit like substitute teacher. The Colts offense started off slow, KB, and that is when Shane Steichen was watching the defense. And then Steichen goes back to the offense, and the offense and Anthony Richardson start to play a lot better football. And it was just funny, you know, in that first period, they had Jim Bob Cooter who was over there. So a little substitute teacher with Shane Steichen not there. But I thought, listen, I said this yesterday, Arizona's not a very good team. They are a rebuilding team. They have a pretty random roster. There is a lot of work for Jonathan Gannon and company to do there with the Arizona Cardinals. That is not the case with the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow back. They figure things out here in the next week or two with Jamar Chase, what's going to happen with him. The Cincinnati Bengals, you know, they're a team that expects to be there in the AFC Championship game. So going up against a team like that, I think is way more valuable than some of the other exercises the Colts have had this offseason.
Shane Steichen, like Coach Yost from Remember the Titans, all of a sudden getting back on his side of the ball.
Well,
there.
I mean,
Is that
did
what
you
you're
see
saying?
that? I mean, they stunk it up, and then he walks over there, and then Anthony Richardson can't miss a pass.
Can make an argument, I think, no offense will look more different from what you see in training camp, the preseason, than the Colts versus the regular season. I have to remind myself at times of that. And Shane Steichen showed his hand a lot as a first-year head coach. He wants up-tempo, and he wants a whole lot of motion.
Yep.
And I think when the Colts are at their best offensively, whether that was with Richardson or Minshew, and even in camp, we've seen that before yesterday, it is the up-tempo nature. So I would expect a heavy dose of that when September 8th rolls around. So we'll recap a lot of what yesterday was about. Again, Stephen Holder joining us at 8. Kyle Neddenrip at 8:30. We were 48 hours away, a little over 48 hours away from high school football. I believe we have the Battle of Lawrence coming up on our airwaves Friday night, LC and LN. I know it's a ludicrous thought, or should have been a ludicrous thought probably 3-4 years ago, but actually a question I have for Kyle Neddenrip is like, are we nearing like one-time transfers in high school athletics? Are we nearing NIL in high school athletics?
Well, I'm sure.
Is that a stupid question? Are those stupid questions?
A form of NIL has always been around, but yeah, the answer to your question in short is probably yes.
Yeah, free pizza at the local, joint. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
but
$100 handshake, but like real NIL, sure.
Your boy down there in New Albany a decade ago would have drawn a whole lot.
You
for
better
the crowds
believe it.
that Romeo Langford was producing down there. So I know it's probably not a topic a lot of people want to discuss or even maybe want to bring up, but I don't know. Is it the elephant in the room? Is it not with high school athletics? So Kyle's going to join us coming up at 8:30. Lin Dunn at 9 o'clock. WNBA trade deadline comes and goes. Pretty quiet league wide. Nothing for the Fever. They're back at it Saturday night in Minnesota.
Okay, so last week we had Lin Dunn on, and it was fantastic radio, and she told us that she read leadership books, she read romance novels, right? What else was there? Was there some fiction involved? I'm not exactly sure.
Murder, right?
Some murder.
Sex and murder.
Sex and murder and leadership thrown in there. So do we think she has a new book for this week, or does it take her longer than a week to read a book? Like, she says she's an avid reader, so, there's been a rainy day or two. I expect her that she's cuddled up in the couch and, read a book at some point this week, so I need a new book from Lin Dunn.
Kind of hoping it's like Harold and the Purple Crayon or something like that. Something completely off the beaten path from what you described last week.
We could go there. We could go, the food route with Lin Dunn. She certainly described what she likes on a hot dog, and she did not hold back at all from a toppings standpoint.
It's been a good week for her, though, has it not? I mean, come on. Those 2 wins, is as good as you get.
Exactly what they needed. I might ask Lin Dunn this. Did you guys see this yesterday? And I feel like this hits our 3 generation. I mean, we're all, within a handful of years of each other
right,
here.
About 5.5, 6 years, yeah.
Were you guys as addicted as I was to Backyard Baseball, the computer game back in the day?
Okay, so I was not. No, I
Really?
didn't. No, I was not.
Mark?
Oh boy, Mark's gonna give you a no.
He is going to give me a no.
Yeah.
Really?
Sorry.
He's giving you a disappointed no. Yeah, I thought you meant like you played with buddies, like Sandlot backyard baseball.
Of course,
everyone did that.
That as well. But
Sure.
when you nerd out over the video game or you got a rainy day, I was at Tin Can Alley playing a little Pablo Sanchez, Pete Wheeler, Keisha Phillips.
Oh yeah,
the Khan brothers, Ahmed and Amir, no relation, I believe, to the Khan family that owns the Jags. But boy, okay, well that one just hit a dud. Backyard Baseball's making a comeback. Did you guys see this?
Oh, is it? I mean, I know what you're talking about, but no, it wasn't something that I was that was part of my childhood, I guess.
Yeah, that is.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
I mean, honestly, one of the things I hope Max Bowen grows up to want to do is be addicted to backyard baseball.
Okay.
Sure, playing it outside, but the video game as well. What do you think, just generally, in hearing the reports from Cincinnati yesterday?
Yeah, for me, I was, and I told you this last night, part of me was like, hey, this is good. It's good that you go out. Listen, I think there's 2 things. I think the underlying part of all of this is I don't know, and I want to ask Stephen Holder since he was there, and I know you probably have thoughts watching all these different training camp practices, is what matters when you're going up against a team like this? What matters? Like Shane Steichen watches Anthony Richardson, early on go 3 for 10 with an interception. Does that matter? Does it matter given, Ryan Kelly after practice is like, yeah, we basically scouted their defense for 5 minutes. If this were a normal regular season game, we would scout them for at least 5 days. And so, it doesn't matter that I'm sounding the alarm on the offense, but how much does it matter that the offense sputtered when they got up there against, a legit competitor in the Cincinnati Bengals? So I think the thing that you said is probably the number 1 takeaway. Out of just about anyone in the NFL, the Colts have to be in the upper, what was the Jim Irsay? Quartile?
The upper
Yes.
quartile.
The
Of course.
quartile.
That's the most important quartile.
They have to be, are they not, in the upper quartile of what they're showing right now is just going to be, you would imagine on September 8th, so different. I mean, that's what we imagine with the running ability of Anthony Richardson. I did see many of the guys that were there on how the Bengals were yelling at Anthony Richardson, all he's going to do is run. All he's going to do is run. So I like the fact you don't always get it in training camp when you're playing against each other. You sure as hell last week did get it against the Arizona Cardinals, but you got it yesterday. And that is a legit team right there in the AFC doing a little chirping. And then it's good that when, Steichen comes back and you go fast, you go quick, that you look better as an offense. So, for me, I like the fact that there was that challenge. And then the last thing for me, Steichen comes out, KB, and says, well, he doesn't promise that the starters are going to play a full half. I mean, he said about a quarter and a half. Some guys may play a quarter or less. Some guys may make it all the way to halftime. If you go back the first two games in the first half, there were 7 Colts possessions against the Broncos. There were 6 against the Cardinals. So the question will be tomorrow night, how many possessions does Anthony Richardson play? If he plays 4 or 5, then you're looking at a guy who's played 6 or 7 possessions in the preseason. And I think when all is said and done, the Colts again will be in the upper quartile of probably not having their starters play much at all in the preseason if they don't play the entire first half. So those are my thoughts. Again, not a bad thing. They struggled. You could take that as sound the alarm. I take it as it's good to be challenged by a team that is recognized as one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, it sounded like kind of just a mixed bag for what it's worth yesterday. Richardson's completion percentage under 50%. That's easily one of his worst days of camp. And I think the question, going back to what I said earlier to lead off the show, is this: can defenses make the Colts look like or play in a training camp atmosphere? Much easier said than done. But can you take away the multiplicity of Richardson as a runner and turn him into purely a thrower? Because if you play the drop back game, which, from the sound of it yesterday was that, Joe Burrow's at 80%, Anthony Richardson's under 50%. I mean, you can't live in that world.
I know.
So
I know.
That's the question. Can you continue to be an offense that is multiple, that is dynamic, that is keeping the defense on its heels, i.e. using tempo? I mean, that is a huge part of what the Colts did last year, even with Gardner Minshew. They used a whole lot of tempo, and that is something that, I would assume is going to be a big staple again. So that's probably the grand offensive takeaway. Cincinnati's defenders chirping, I think a lot of that comes from, we play a quarterback every day in practice that doesn't run. So, this is so different.
Yeah.
We're used to you being back there and throwing it. And there's been days where Zaire Franklin, DeForest Buckner and company look at Shane Steichen come on. Can he,
Right, we can't touch him. What are you doing?
Can he throw it? He's wearing a red jersey. So I think that's where I know a lot of people want to build up this. They were talking bleep and they were talking trash. Yeah, that's some of it. But I think a lot of it's dude, we're not allowed to touch you. At least give us a chance here to make some plays on the ball. And then defensively, it's a phrase that I think has a lot of negative connotation to it, but it's a phrase that I think rather accurately describes the Colts defense in recent years. Bend but don't break. I mean, they bent Joe Burrow's 80% on the day.
Yeah.
But all those red zone snaps, none of them ended in touchdowns.
Yeah, no touchdowns.
And certainly situational football at that part of the field is such a big element. Now, I think it's worth pointing out, for those that have not followed the Cincinnati training camp very closely, the offense has struggled. Joe Burrow has not been very strong here in camp by all accounts. Mark's Bears sounded like they got the better of Cincinnati's offense without Jamar Chase, of course, here last week in their joint session. So it seemed like the Cincinnati takeaway yesterday was we haven't seen Burrow this accurate, this efficient. Even though it was kind of dink and dunk, we haven't seen that to that degree. So that's, I think, kind of the offense and defense thought. And then lastly, and we'll certainly expand on this throughout the show, unfortunately, the tight end drama got cleared up yesterday.
I know.
There is no more drama. Jelani Woods suffering a toe injury on Saturday, and Shane Steichen saying yesterday that he's going to miss some time and that it's a significant injury. Joel Erickson reporting that it's going to be surgery. To me, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and say this is easy. Jelani Woods goes into reserve. He potentially returns at some point this season.
Right.
And Will Mallory makes the football team, and you got 4 tight ends.
I think it's done. It's worked itself out. Unfortunately, it's worked itself out with Jelani Woods being injured. And, I mean, I guess if he comes back after 4 weeks, I mean, I don't know. By then, you're going to have other injuries. Maybe by the first month of the season, there'll be some guys not
you
living
cross that
up
bridge
to.
when it comes.
Yeah, you'll be. Some guys may not live up to expectations, but I no longer think that Jelani. I mean, I guess this is how I guess in the last week or so, KB, I've come to the realization that I just don't think Jelani Woods is going to be much of anything for the Colts. I mean, do you? I mean, right now it's an uphill battle, and injuries haven't taken this offseason away. I want to go back. He was roster bubble before the injury yesterday. What the injury did is it made it to where he's not on the cut line, in my estimation, coming up next week. That's what it did. I mean, to me, you can make the argument that yesterday at least saved the job for the first month of the season for Jelani Woods.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm like his career's over with the Colts. I don't know. I feel like we've gotten to this like extreme end of the line with Jelani Woods really, really quickly. And I guess I'm a little confused by it. Mo Alley-Cox and Kylan Granson are free agents. What's the future at tight end?
Right. I mean, Will Mallory has how many catches, too? I mean, last year, how many catches did he have?
Did Drew Ogletree have?
Yeah, I know. Well, he's suspended last year, too.
So we talk about the present at tight end. I mean, the future has no clarity either. So it's like Jelani Woods is making what? Is he even making $1 million?
Well, I have the answer. I know what it is. You want to hear my theory on Jelani Woods? My theory is that people have been enamored with him for now a couple seasons, and they're tired of waiting. And when we get tired of waiting, we're going to lash out, and that's why we're like, we'll just cut Jelani Woods, because we've been waiting on the upside.
Yeah, it's just like I don't really see a huge benefit to doing that. So I just, you put him on injured reserve, and then if he can return at some point in 2024, he does. Obviously, it's unfortunate. I think it's pretty clear he's had an underwhelming camp. I think I've shared those thoughts in the dozen practices watched at Grand Park. But at the same time, just because the camp had been underwhelming, I don't think you're in a position where it's like, oh, yeah, just cut ties with him.
Right.
There's an abundance of other tight ends that have bright, bright futures. I don't know if I say that. And at the same time, I mean, Shane Steichen just witnessed the first ever full padded practices with Jelani Woods. Are you really done with him after 3 weeks? It's not like Shane saw him last year in practice. So, again, unfortunate news, certainly. And this impacts the 53-man roster. I think there was another injury note we can get to later today that I think could impact the 53-man roster as well. I guess we should note another thing from Cincinnati yesterday. Did sound like Matt Gay had a strong day kicking it, which,
boy, he needed that.
Right now.
Matt Gay needed that. Did you see the field goal?
That is better than the alternative.
Did you see the field goal set was all leaning to the left yesterday?
Yeah, walk me through. Did we have an earthquake there in the Ohio River yesterday?
Such a,
Are they the cheapest NFL team in the league, the Bengals?
That's the thing. The Bengals are always going to stink like the Bengals. No matter what they try, even if they have Joe Burrow dressed up like Eminem.
Didn't they go to the Super Bowl? Weren't they like a play away from winning the Super Bowl?
I'm a Joe Burrow fan. They have put together a nice roster. I'll praise what the Bengals have been the last couple years. But right when you think, like, oh, this is not the Bengals that I remember growing up. It's not the Cincinnati Bengals of my youth. They have a removable goalpost that looked like it was leaning way to the left. So maybe that's all Matt Gay needed was a leaning. Of course, he was missing everything to the left. That's all he needed was a goalpost leaning to the left.
I think Colts fans in unison would climb up atop the goalpost at Grand Park and bend that thing if it makes 5 playoff wins appear over the last couple of years like Cincinnati has gotten out of their franchise. So, again, nothing today for the Colts. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Again, Colts starters around 1.25. And Zach Taylor made it pretty clear after practice yesterday. They're not going to play many, if any, starters. So I guess if you want to go with teams that have played less than the Colts this preseason, Cincinnati would be one of them.
It might be them, yeah.
So that's the outlook for tomorrow night. Again, Amazon, 8 o'clock. We'll have coverage beginning at 5. That will also be picked up locally. Fox 59, Kirk Herbstreit, Al Michaels, and what's her name? Kaylee Hartung.
Hartung, yeah. Can I throw one more Jelani Woods thing? Like, I'm a firm believer that people are lashing out a little bit, like I said to you, because we've waited on Jelani, and this is now like year 3, and it's like, okay, at some point, if he's not going to satisfy my football needs, then get him out of here. I think the other thing is, on the Ballard side, given that these are injuries, and Ballard always likes guys with upside and measurables. Jelani obviously has both of those things. On defense, we have seen Ballard wait on some of these guys on defense for 2 and 3 years. So why would Jelani be different? That would be the argument as well if I'm Jelani Woods and his agent that, well, Ballard, you don't mind waiting 3 years before a safety can get on the field. What about a tight end?
Well, and if you could show me great future at the position we're talking about,
it'd be different, right?
I could get behind
well,
you.
If you had Brock Bowers on the team, right?
But you don't have that. So I don't, again, there's this rush, and I get it. When this team runs it back, a big part of running it back are there are some guys internally on your roster you expect to take big leaps. Obviously, Richardson's the poster child of that, but guys like Jelani Woods and Juju Brents are probably right on that second tier. And in Jelani's case, even Juju, who missed another practice yesterday, for them to have been banged up again, that's unfortunate. It's a huge bummer, and it's disappointing. But, again, to totally bail when I sit here and I'm like, where's 2025 at that position? Again, Kylan Granson and Mo Alley Cox, for what? I mean, they are free agents.
Sure.
So, their future is up in the air. But nonetheless, I think, albeit in the unfortunate category, I think the old tight end debate over the next 6 days, to me, there's really no debate. It seems rather obvious to me, and we'll confirm that with Stephen Holder when he joins us at 8.
Yeah, Stephen Holder coming up at 8 o'clock. Kyle Neddenrip, Indy Star. He'll join us at 8:30. Fever Jam, Lin Dunn at 9 o'clock. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Coming up next, what did Shane Steichen say about the offense yesterday, plus all your scores from last night. Your morning check down. It's coming up next on this Hump Day Wednesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We got a crowded 8 o'clock into 9 hour. Stephen Holder down in Cincinnati at the joint practice yesterday. He's going to join us here in a bit. Kyle Nenrip ahead of week 1 of high school football at 8:30. And after an outstanding performance per usual last week, the great Lin Dunn joins us coming up at 9 o'clock. Andy Sweeney, go ahead and lead us off in the morning check.
Yeah, as always, Colts training camp joint practices. We will start with them. Anthony Richardson, I think, ended the day 10 of 20, of course, the joint practices there against the Cincinnati Bengals. After the practice, Shane Steichen, head coach, talked about what he liked with his team going up against the Bengals last night.
The 2-minute, the competition, the move the ball stuff was good, back and forth. Obviously, I got to go watch the defense, but thought our guys moved the ball well in that move the ball situation. And then the 2-minute drive was just trying to get a field goal right there to win it at the end. And offense did a really good job. Our one offense did a good job getting a field goal there, and our defense obviously held them there on the 4th down, which was good. So good overall deal for both sides.
Yeah, mixed bag yesterday. Slow start for the offense, picked it up, got things going. Whenever they go fast, we've talked about it, that offense and Anthony Richardson do seem to hum. Now, one thing we didn't talk about in that opening segment, KB, defensive lineman Raekwon Davis back on the field, back getting in shape, I guess. He met with the media after practice yesterday. Of course, he's been out this entire time with that high blood pressure. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, it wasn't no big deal, man. I'm so grateful for EB them and Hammer and Kyle, just to, catch that type of problem. Because we've been seeing so much, with high blood pressure, with heart attacks and things like that. So it's a great thing they caught that. I mean, it was a hassle just to get back, but I mean, I'm back, trying to work my way up, trying to work my way back in shape, stay in the playbook, just do everything I can do.
Well, shout out to the Colts medical team.
Yeah, how about
Raekwon
that?
Davis just did there. That would be Aaron Brill, Dave Hammer, and Kyle Davis. Yeah, certainly nothing you want to mess around with whatsoever. Raekwon Davis, first practice since the spring yesterday, and I would assume this means he's good to go for the 53-man roster. We'll see if he plays at all coming up tomorrow night or exactly how they want to ramp that up here. Again, 8 o'clock kick. Are we betting on the game?
I will probably not bet on the game, but if the Colts are going to play their starters and the Bengals aren't, and I get a second half with my main man Jason Bean, I might go ahead and bet the game. So what do we have? Do we have a line for it?
Colts are 6.5-point favorites.
Wow, that's a lot of
this
points. That's a lot of points.
Are you rethinking your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a good sports gambler anyway, and for me to lean Colts there might put the curse on them.
And to be a preseason gambler, that's a bit of a risky.
Yeah, it can be.
Situation.
It can
Well,
be.
you can look at a glass half full and say, I'm not a good gambler anyways. Might as well just bet on the preseason.
You might as well. Well, listen, they play the starters. Now, did they say anything yesterday? I didn't see anything about Flacco. Is Flacco going to play at all, do we think, on Thursday? I mean, does Flacco need to play? I mean, Flacco doesn't need to play, right?
Probably say not on that.
Yeah, put
He's going to go
Ellinger
fix the
in.
goalpost.
Yeah, put Jason Bean in. And Colts minus 6.5, sure, I'll take that. I got no problem
Jake
with that.
Browning healthy? He kind of sliced and diced the Colts last year. Is that who they're going to see
The only
tomorrow
thing
night?
I remember is Jake Browning's girlfriend or wife wearing the bodysuit when they played.
I think that's all
that.
anybody knows about
How
him.
could you forget about that?
That was an ugly weather day, but
it was
not an ugly shot of her.
No, it was one of the lasting moments from the NFL season for your boy over here. So
Speaking of lasting moments, that's probably how I described the Reds last night. They lose north of the border there.
Well, where are you
Cubs
gonna go?
win. Indians lose a heartbreaker there, 2-1 at Columbus.
yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the Indians lost. They won 6 in a row. Quickly, other NFL nuggets. So Jerry Jones says CeeDee Lamb. They had productive talk. So maybe are the Cowboys a little bit closer to bringing in CeeDee Lamb? And then Jordan Schultz of ESPN reporting the Niners are still hopeful on Brandon Ayuk. I guess there have been conversations on, getting he and Trent Williams, a big left tackle there, getting both of those guys in camp. We forget, hey, it's getting close. It's about nut cutting time for some of these guys. Are they going to play? Or are they not going to play? When we get past this weekend, it's going to be one of those conversations of, okay, what are we doing? Now we're going to be inside 2 weeks of the season getting underway.
I like the Brandon Ayuk stuff, changes with the wind. One day he's going to Pittsburgh, the next he's staying with San Francisco long term.
Schefter has said this is the craziest kind of back and forth he's seen. Just of the ebbs and flows of he's gone, he's back, et cetera, et cetera. Are any of these Jonathan Taylor, or none of them have any sort of injury issue with it? Are any of these going to linger into the season injury-wise? I mean, that's what happened with Taylor.
It's a great question. Like, will there be an injury, or I'm putting quotations, an injury that keeps him out? I could totally see it. Listen,
but none of them are on the PUP list, right?
No, they're not. I mean, the thing here is these players, especially with the 49ers, it feels like, are getting a little bit of leverage. You know, they really don't have any, but the season is going to start.
I would think CeeDee Lamb's got the most leverage, considering the lack of success Dallas has had.
Agreed. I guess I see it as San Francisco is down to, they're going to have to pay their quarterback and some other guys on their roster. They really need to win this year. And boy, I tell you, they did not look good without Brandon Ayuk in the preseason.
Couple other items of note. IndyCar out at Portland coming up this weekend. It was officially announced yesterday. The voice of IndyCar, Lee Diffie, will remain with NBC and move over to NASCAR as the play-by-play voice, and that starts this weekend. So Kevin Lee will continue. I think he did a couple of races pre-Olympics with Lee Diffie heading over to Paris for that. So Kevin Lee, it sounds like, will do the remainder of the races here. Obviously, you heard Kurt and Kevin last night. On track side, then we'll wait and see what the future holds for IndyCar on Fox in terms of a new play-by-play voice. I thoroughly enjoyed Lee Diffie's time.
He's good.
Broadcasting IndyCar, certainly the 500 as well, so I will definitely miss Lee Diffie on that. And a bit of a somber update here on this morning check down. Bill York, certainly behind the scenes here locally, but an absolute, really just an icon from a sports media, sports statistician standpoint at the variety of venues here locally. Did it for over 4 decades, passed earlier this week. So thoughts with Bill York and his family. Met Bill a couple times in the Lucas Oil Stadium press box, and man, they ran an efficient operation over there. Certainly over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, they do the same. IMS, long history of that. And Bill York, such a pivotal player in all of that.
Obviously I didn't know him, but it feels like in the last, several months, the city of Indianapolis has lost a couple titans in the sports industry, right? It does feel that way, does it not, in the last 6 months or so?
Yeah, and certainly Jim Morris, a lot more front-facing than a guy like Bill York. But, to people that, worked kind of in my field or certainly even older than me, they knew the face, they knew the name Bill York a whole lot there. So certainly thoughts with his family.
All right, coming up in 25 minutes, Stephen Holder from ESPN will join us there live in Cincinnati. We'll talk with him. What did he see yesterday? And obviously getting ready for preseason game number 3. But coming up next, I have a thought on Anthony Richardson. And KB posted 10 questions for the Colts. Where are we with those 10 questions? We'll tell you that next. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Wednesday. Wake up call right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Stephen Holder was at Colts and Bengals yesterday, that joint practice. We'll get his thoughts coming up here in about 20 minutes. A couple items of note we did not mention from that. It did sound like a bit of a shaky start for the Colts offensive line yesterday. Several sacks of Anthony Richardson. That falls in the non-starter category. You have got to have your offensive line playing like 2023, certainly not 2022. You've got enough questions and uncertainty about the guy you're protecting and Anthony Richardson that group cannot be that. I know Cincinnati's got a couple guys up front, but still, that is something to note from yesterday. It did sound like we continued to see Julian Blackmon kind of flip-flop positions and Nick Cross still get the start, but Rodney Thomas also play. Just to clarify for people out there, if Cross is the starter, that means Blackmon would play strong safety closer to the line of scrimmage where he had the career year last year. If Rodney Thomas is the starter, I had that wrong. If Cross is the starter,
it is kind of confusing.
Closer to the line of scrimmage. Apologies. Blackmon will play as the final line of defense as the free safety. If Rodney Thomas is the starter, he'll be the free safety. Blackmon will be where he was last year as the strong safety. Basically, they don't trust Nick Cross at the back end as much as they trust Rodney Thomas the second at the back end.
Yeah, that's basically what's going on. They did say, Shane Steichen, they're just going to keep flip-flopping, and he's like, you never know when you're going to have to play, the other position there at safety. So they do keep saying, like, they just won't give the job to Nick Cross. They do keep saying whoever keeps making the most plays, and it's like, you guys, I know they are running out of time to throw that 10-second line at us after every single practice. Can I ask you?
There was a safety available on the free agent market that could possibly
only
solve this issue.
If only there were a few. So again, we'll see when they have cuts next week. There'll be players available and everything else. Before we get to. KB posted 10 questions up at 1075thefan.com. What was it, yesterday or the weekend? I can't remember. And some of those, like Jelani Woods, have kind of already been answered, right? We talked about Jelani Woods in segment number 1. Before we get to that, and again, Stephen Holder in about 15 minutes, I wanted to throw one thing your way. Is there any trepidation that because Anthony Richardson is so different, and because you and I both, I think to a certain extent, do buy into and believe the narrative that the Colts are being vanilla, and then come the start of the regular season, they're going to unleash this offense. Do we believe that? Do we think fans believe that? Is there any trepidation that we're not seeing any of that? Could we see some of that in this third preseason game where we look out there and say, okay, this is different play calling. This is a different Anthony Richardson. I mean, in the first 2 games, Shane Steichen's talked about him not even calling plays, and Jim Bob Cooter and other guys there on that offensive staff doing so. I got to be honest, I don't know how much they even care about the preseason games. The Colts, I think it's very low. I think they're a team that's in the NFL that's very low in caring about these preseason games. But, that is a narrative. When they have a struggle like yesterday, we sit here and say, well, they're vanilla and Anthony's going to run. And, when you're in these practices, no one's going to be hitting the quarterback. He's wearing a red jersey. We do believe that, right? Do you think a lot of Colts fans feel that way? Or are people worried when they see that Anthony starts 3 of 10 with an interception early on yesterday?
Well, I guess to cop out, I would say both. I mean, I think fans can realize the offense will look different come September 8th, and it should look different come September 8th. But also, Anthony Richardson in a training camp setting, that is largely the area he struggles in the most.
The most, right.
That is largely the area where he needs to improve the most. It's probably a poor analogy, but it would be like telling me to go to a golf course and Kevin Bowen, all you can do is chip. I'm like, well, that's the worst part of my game. I don't want to go do that.
Is that the worst part of your game?
Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. Who wants to go chip?
Right.
That's boring. Who wants to do that for an hour?
And that's all you do, and that's how we evaluate your practice, is only by chipping.
Training camp is like for Anthony Richardson. He is not this just natural thrower of the football in a let me pick you apart, throw with anticipation, have unbelievable timing. So in a way, if you want to be glass half full, drill him into the ground, really, in these sorts of settings. But I'll go back to what I said to open up the show, Andy. What defenses can make him play in that? What defenses can take away the dual threat, the multiplicity. And that's why, if you're the Houston Texans in week 1, if you're the Green Bay Packers in week 2, I mean, don't you put 8 in the box? Don't you put
every time?
Don't you put 9 in the box and say, all right.
Especially if there's no Josh Downs.
You know, I've said to you quite often, I think the dynamic of Taylor and Richardson will be right up there with any in the league in terms of a dual threat quarterback and running back. So if that is such a huge strength of the Colts, you're obviously going to want them to play left-handed. So you're going to load the box. You're going to try and get them to be in more of a traditional throwing 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop offense. And now it's up to Shane Steichen to say, we don't want to be in that. We don't want to live there. That is how you got to view it. So that's how I kind of look at things. Now, again, yesterday, Richardson's below 50%. Joe Burrow's 80%. I mean, that you know, that's the exact discrepancy that you don't want to have. But again, when you make these two quarterbacks play in the type of, you know, atmosphere that a training camp practice produces, that's where you can expose Richardson, and in Burrow's case, you can probably have him thrive a little bit more.
Right. I just saw a little conversation yesterday. I forget, it was one of the guys that was there even kind of posed the question of, hey, are we worried? Or maybe there was a Twitter conversation last night. I can't remember. I should have bookmarked it of, hey, you know, basically saying what you're saying, and then the flip side of that is he's still going to have to get better at these things at some point, and Coach Venturi has talked about this with us and JMV and everybody else. At some point, the college Saturday playbook will disappear, and the NFL playbook on a 3rd and 8 may have to appear, and he's going to have to make those plays. And, you know, I am of the belief that we are going to see an uncaged Anthony Richardson, if you will, right? A guy that's going to have full freedom, and a Shane Steichen who I believe doesn't want to show much of anything. I believe that is the case. The flip side is he's not going to, you know, being 50% or under or a little bit above 50% is just not going to cut it, right? I mean, we've talked about that. That number needs to be, 60%, 65%, whatever is going to make you believe that he can throw. And then when you believe that, you're not putting 8 in the box, and that opens up Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson to be the best 2 rushing duo that we could see in the NFL this season.
Drew accurately points this out. Drew goes, I believe the offense is just being vanilla. I believe the defense is simply vanilla from its coach liabilities.
Well, I think the majority of fans buy that.
Did you see the graphic?
We hope that's the case.
Yeah, I probably had a dozen people send me the graphic yesterday that was going around NFL Twitter world of the defenses employing multiple different coverages.
Oh boy, yeah.
Over the course of the season, you know, it's one of those graphs of, you know, what do you got, the XY plot, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just say the Colts were like, it almost looked like if I told Rosie, hey, find the Colts logo, it would have taken her 10 minutes. To locate how far to the left the Colts were.
It was one of those diagrams? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, everything is pointing top right area, and the Colts are way on the left side. So, Drew, yes, I would say it's accurate. And, again, if you look at the day for Burrow yesterday, bend but don't break. That's exactly what it sounded like and Burrow's not had these days in camp based off the Cincinnati chatter. Like, he has not been a very efficient quarterback. Again, he's coming back from the wrist injury.
Sure, no Jamar Chase.
Not had Jamar Chase. But again, 80% day, but when they got in the red zone, nothing whatsoever from the Bengals and their ability to get into the end zone. I just wanted to make sure, because I know we'll talk Jelani Woods with Stephen Holder coming up. I want to make sure that our audience is kind of up to date, because these rule changes do seemingly change every year, Andy. I said in the opening segment, to me, the tight end debates are over. Jelani Woods with yesterday's news, toe injury, going to miss some time. Very rare for Shane Steichen in a press conference to share that information. So clearly this is a significant injury. Joel A. Erickson mentioned surgery is needed. I believe what that means is Jelani Woods goes to injured reserve, and if healthy at some point in 2024, he returns. Now, these are for our 53-man roster nerds out there, but basically the NFL has changed their rule to each team gets to place 2 players on injured reserve at the roster cut-down deadline, which is Tuesday, to return this season. So in previous years, the NFL used to have a rule where you had to initially carry the player on the 53-man roster, which I believe is what they did with Woods last year. I think they initially had to carry him, then they moved him to injured reserve.
Right.
This year, that is no longer the case. If you want a guy back or believe he can be back, you can go ahead and put him on injured reserve right away. You don't have to initially carry him. You get 2 of those players. They have to be out for at least 4 weeks. I would assume Jelani Woods is one of those 2 guys. Now, weirdly, they've yet to put Samson Ebukam on injured reserve. I mean, the dude tore his Achilles. Cam Akers, I know for the Rams a few years ago,
There's just no way.
Beyond the anomaly of a guy that did it.
And they made it all the way to the Super Bowl that year, did they not?
Yeah.
I mean, so they played all the way to damn near, they did. They played all the way to February.
But basically, I bring that up to say Woods is an obvious one. The Colts really don't have another one. I mean, hold your breath for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night will obviously be a big watch of that. I don't think Josh Downs falls into this category. The update yesterday was he's off the scooter, a little bit of a limp, but he is not, immobile. I mean, he is doing some walking.
Right.
But again, if you think Downs is going to play in the first 4 weeks, which you would hope, you don't need to put him on injured reserve to return. So these are just a couple of things to watch, but I bring that up because, isn't that what you do with Woods at this point? And that means you keep 4 tight ends.
Yeah.
And to me, those 4 names
simple.
are very obvious. Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, and it sounds like Will Mallory had a nice day yesterday. So in a weird, unfortunate way, our constant debate over what you do at tight end seemingly is over. and it's unfortunate.
We have a lot of days to fill here. We got 3 weeks, guys.
Well,
I know. It feels like
we
everything's
can nerd out
done.
over other roster stuff if you really want to. Is Tanner Bortolini's injury significant enough to where that helps out Danny Pinter? That could be something we can nerd
we
out
have to
over.
do a Danny Pinter conversation.
Well,
Okay.
Shout out to our Ball State faithful out there.
It.
Shout out to our firefighters out there. Big Danny Pinter fans. So that is something that I just wanted to clarify because I know this is very confusing because it has changed again this season. But I would assume that is the route they'll go with Jelani Woods here coming up on Tuesday.
All right, so we have a couple minutes here. 1075thefan.com. You have the piece, and I wanted you just to kind of hit on this. So we've talked about the 10 things that you kind of threw out there. I think we have a few that we kind of know about, right? I mean, Raekwon Davis, he is back. We wondered about that. You wondered about that over the weekend. As it pertains to Jelani Woods, we've talked a lot about Jelani Woods here in the first hour of the show. So Sam Ehlinger, the 3rd quarterback. What about running back? Ashton Doolin making the roster. Depth on the O-line. Linebacker depth as well. Colts keeping a kicker on the practice squad. Where do you want to go? Which ones now with Raekwon Davis and with Jelani Woods kind of out of the equation? Matt Gay had a much better day yesterday. How have you changed since you wrote that article over the weekend?
Yeah, I guess 2 thoughts. One, I don't think I'll put Sam Ehlinger on the 53.
Really? Okay.
I probably am a hair overvaluing the NFL desire to claim a Sam Ehlinger, but the Colts have never cut him. So I do think that's worth pointing out.
So keep 2 and hope to find a guy on the practice.
Well,
hope
I
that
think
Sam makes it to the
clears waivers, and then again,
gotcha.
That's a new rule change this year. You can dress a quarterback, off your practice squad on game day as an emergency 3rd QB. That would open up another roster spot. And then at running back, I don't think it's the craziest thought to keep 3 and have 1 to 2 on your practice squad, but with Trey Sermon still not back, now we're about a week and a half post-hamstring.
And it's a hamstring, and that just, hamstrings are tough, man.
Evan Hall and Tyler Goodson would seem like borderline locks if Trey Sermon's injury is going to linger any further there. So that would be 4 running backs. So I do think that is something to continue to look at. But that was really it, with eliminating Ehlinger. I think that creates Isaiah Land as kind of a slam dunk, a defensive end, number 55. Those who watched Saturday's game against Arizona, he had a really nice game. And one thing I'm reminded of, their backup offensive lineman, it's going to be crazy on inexperience. It is going to be a vastly inexperienced group.
They need to stay healthy.
And that is a quintet that I think,
they just need to stay healthy.
I have a lot of worry about offensive line depth.
I do too. Where is that, along with safety? Or maybe even corner. Where's offensive line?
I'll keep
is it
defensive
beyond?
back atop the list because
I would agree.
It's still in the starting lineup.
But it matters.
But, again, you're just in all it takes is one. Just, a little Braden Smith absence, and all of a sudden you're in scramble mode there. So Yes, that kind of goes without saying to me. It's probably my biggest question offensively. Maybe even more so than just in general. I think with Richardson, if healthy, there's at least a floor there. But if you have an offensive line injury, I think you're in scramble mode.
All right, coming up next, what mattered yesterday in Cincinnati. We'll get you ready for tomorrow night's preseason game number 3. Stephen Holder from ESPN. He'll join us next. Appreciate you hanging out with us up until 10 o'clock, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A little chill in the air here in Indianapolis on this Wednesday morning. Stephen Holder from ESPN.com is with us. He certainly had eyes down in Cincinnati yesterday on the joint practice between the Colts and the Bengals. And, Stephen, we'll just start there and let you kind of paint the picture for our audience. Obviously not a ton of people witnessed what happened yesterday. Give us a little elevator pitch, if you will, on what took place at practice.
Yeah, I thought it was – I thought one of the more underwhelming days for the Colts offense. I'm not up in arms about that. I do think that we have to note it and we have to acknowledge it. But I do look at training camp as sort of a marathon, not a sprint, right? And each individual day, you can't blow it out of proportion. But that being said, it is what it is, right? I don't think it was a very good day for the Colts offense. Not a ton of big plays. They didn't move the ball consistently, I felt like. And so they did have a better time in the red zone. They did score a touchdown. They got stopped at the one on another possession. Talking about the first team offense here, right? I won't get into the second and third team. That's not important, as important. And then I would say, when they had sort of the move the ball period, Kevin, you know what I'm talking about here, where they just it's just sort of like, hey, balls at our own 20-yard line, just go. We're just going to play, right?
Play football, yeah.
Yeah. So they did that and actually went no huddle, and then they got it going. Anthony Richardson really got it going in the no huddle. And I'm telling you, I think they're going to have to make that a big component of what they do. I think it's just he's had consistently good results when they do that. And Ryan Kelly said yesterday as well that he expects that to be a big part of their offense this year. So keep an eye on that. Anyway, defensively, this is not an elevator pitch. This is a long elevator ride. So I thought they were fine. They certainly prevented the big play. So that's certainly a worry, when you're going up against a quarterback like Joe Burrow. I didn't see many of those. And I thought they definitely defended the pass, I thought, relatively well and got some pressure. So I thought defensively, good day for those guys, not so much on the offense.
Talking some Colts, obviously the practice yesterday, off day today in Cincinnati. I'm sure all the guys are thrilled an off day in Cincinnati before preseason game number 3 tomorrow night. Stephen Holder with us here, ESPN on the Payless Liquors hotline. You mentioned, running a quick offense. The we got to go. The NASCAR type offense is what they're good at. Are you of the belief, Stephen, that through training camp, when we have seen, and obviously in these preseason games, that Shane Steichen is being vanilla on purpose, and on September 8th, it's going to all be opened up, and Anthony Richardson's going to look different, and this offense is going to look different? Are you of the belief that that is true?
Well, I don't think they've shown everything. They definitely show more in practice than you see in the preseason games. I mean, everybody knows that, obviously. But I mean, they have to practice the things that they are going to use in the regular season. There's no doubt about that. I do think that some of the things that they will specifically use against Houston and that will be in that game plan, I think there's some of those elements that we probably haven't seen. And what they'll do is, I guess, starting next week, I imagine, when they're back at the usual facility on 56th Street, the Colts' typical facility, and practice is then closed, that's when you throw the whole kitchen sink out there and you start really talking about the Houston Texans and game planning. So that will – I'm not saying they haven't done any of that, but that will start really next week. What you're seeing in practice is, a lot of times in training camp, what you're seeing is what was installed on a given day, and they're repping it and they're trying to perfect it. They'll have a lot more volume that we haven't seen just because they haven't got there yet, maybe. So yeah, I don't know that he's intentionally making it vanilla in practice per se, as much as we haven't seen everything just because, it's like 12 or 13 practices total, and you're not going to see everything in that time frame.
And Stephen Holder from ESPN with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, you would label it unfortunate, but I almost feel like yesterday we got clarity on the tight end debate. Jelani Woods is going to miss time. It sounds like he's going to miss significant time. To me, in 6 days, when roster cuts are due, you put him on injured reserve. You hope he returns at some point in 2024, and that's your tight end decision. Will Mallory, congrats. You've made the team. So has Mo Alley Cox, so has Kylan Granson, and so has Drew Ogletree. Am I missing something at tight end?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly how this is going to work. Fate is what it is, and this is where they are. This is where they're at. So it does make the decision easy for them. It is unfortunate, but it does make the decision easy. I think both things are true. I think the unfortunate thing here is, another unfortunate thing is that I still don't have clarity on Jelani Woods.
Right.
What he is, and so here we are, year 3. What is Jelani Woods as we sit here today? I have no idea. And I don't think the Colts do. And the truth of the matter is, life moves on in the NFL. I'm not predicting what's going to happen with this guy. I mean, I think he's a great kid. I think he is talented. Want it to work, for good guys, and I think he is one. He seems like he's so affable. He definitely has, learned a new position in college and got himself drafted in the 3rd round. That's a hell of an accomplishment, right? So he's a talented kid. But the truth is that life moves on pretty quickly. You get forgotten about pretty quickly in this league. And that's one thing I've learned in 20 seasons covering the NFL. It's one of the biggest things that I've learned is that nobody cares, man. All right. They're on to the next thing. And that is just a really cold reality. So my point is, if he doesn't come back this year, and I don't know what the prognosis there is, it's too early. I don't know that. I'm not saying he won't play this year, but if he doesn't have an impact this year, okay, then you're talking about 3 full seasons of really no answers. By that point, you can't expect people to invest a lot more time in you at that point. That's just how it is, man. So I think it's a real potential turning point in his career, depending on how bad this thing is.
Steven, I'd add one more on tight end. Yes, you obviously lack clarity on Jelani Woods, but just in general, I feel like the whole position you still lack clarity on. And part of the reason why I had Woods making the team is I just feel like it's still too early to totally bail on him. Like, what's this great benefit? Kylan Granson and Mo Alley Cox are free agents. Not to, start looking ahead to 2025, but it just seems like we've built up the hype on Woods. Some of it the Colts have. Some of it, certainly is media-driven as well. He had a flash or two late in that rookie season. He was the 3rd-round pick that was the quarterback, changed to tight end in college. Didn't play a whole lot of tight end, frankly, in college. But, it's one of these things, do you really need to bail on a guy that's making, what, $800,000, $900,000?
I'm with you. I mean, obviously, the situation today is – but I didn't necessarily.
I guess
even
put the injury
this.
to the side, act like he was healthy still.
Sure, right. So what I was going to say is I couldn't necessarily get myself there to say, yeah, they should just cut him. Now, I think if you just looked at it just in black and white in terms of who had done enough and all those things, I think there's an argument there. I think it's a very strong argument that he hadn't done enough, and that he should have been the one to be cut. But then there's your argument, which I think is very valid and very compelling, which is, look, it's not even about the 3rd-round pick investment at this point, because I don't care about that at this point. That was 2 years ago. Screw that pick, right? It's more about just what could he be? What can he be? And the last thing you want to do is see a guy get a second chance somewhere else and then go flourish on somebody else's roster and come beat you one day. I mean, there's no worse feeling than that, right? And so I don't know. But it's just so hard to know when that point is. When is it long enough? And I don't know. The Colts have to decide that. And obviously the severity of this injury will dictate a lot of this, but it will be very interesting to see how they govern themselves here moving forward with Jelani Woods. I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out, because I would love to know, at least, and I'm sure the Colts would too, would love to know what is he and what can he be? At least get more of an answer. Because right now they have no answer. They don't even have the beginnings of an answer. They just have the flashes as a rookie, which I think are significant. And then that's it. I mean, your last bit of information was 2 years ago.
Stephen Holder joining us from ESPN, ESPN.com. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, kind of in that same vein, given that maybe the tight ends have worked themselves out here with the Jelani Woods injury, the 53-man roster, the position that you're looking at right now where the toughest cut could be, where is that?
I think defensive line will be tough. It may not be household names that they're struggling to decide on, but I think there's just a lot of production at that position. So I think that was a predictable thing for us. I mean, that position, I would say on paper, has been their deepest position for a long time. In the secondary, it's hard for a different reason because you don't know. Do you have enough guys who can actually step in and help you this year, right? I mean, how many do you keep and how few can you keep and get away with it, right? I mean, because you don't want to keep guys that you don't think can help you. Go find somebody else on a waiver claim or something. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. So I think defensive line, and I still think that there are some unresolved decisions on the offensive line. And I'm not talking about the first line. I think we know what that is. Clearly, they all came back from last year. But that second offensive line is a little unsettled. They've got a couple of injuries to watch there too. So I don't know where that's going to go. I haven't quite figured that out yet. In fact, I got to sit down and crank out a 53-man prediction today. And
oh boy,
I'm going to have to. Yeah, that's always fun.
Does the injury to Juju Brents worry you at all? Him being out now?
I mean, if I take Steichen at his word, which is tricky because he doesn't do a good job of giving clarity on injuries. I like Shane a lot, but that's the one thing with him where you are not going to get clear answers. That being said, he did say yesterday that I guess I walked away with the impression that Juju Brents would not be out very long. He didn't say day to day, week to week. He didn't classify it, but he left, I thought, a very clear impression that it's not a major injury. So we'll see. In fact, I think there's some thought that he could be back pretty soon. So it doesn't worry me yet, unless I get information that says otherwise. But I'm not terribly worried about it. I just think it's in the short term, though, it's not great because with Juju, I mean, he's played so little and he's had so many injuries and so many stops and starts that every little setback for him is just not helpful, and that's where I think I don't want to say worried about it. I think we just have to recognize that it's not helpful right now.
Yeah, he needs reps. I mean, hell, look at the first drive on Saturday. He's out there. He's getting playing time, and it's pass interference penalty. He just needs reps to, get in those game settings. Steven, last one from me. Speaking of Saturday night, we heard Jim Irsay's comments there in the third quarter. You label the Chris Ballard-related blue chip comments as crazy uncle talking at a holiday, or that is legit Irsay belief in Chris Ballard, and therefore you have your answer to is Chris Ballard on any sort of hot seat in 2024 question?
I'll say this for Jim Irsay, and in terms of his comments on Chris Ballard over the course of the last several years, they have been extremely consistent. Okay, that's the one thing I would say. And he ain't consistent about many things, but he has been consistent about Chris Ballard. I think you have to take him at his word. He has never wavered on this. He has consistently said he thinks Chris Ballard is an elite GM. You can disagree as a fan, that's your right, but that ain't the point. Okay, he owns the team, and that's how he feels. That's how he has expressed himself just about in every situation. That does not mean that Chris has carte blanche and doesn't have to answer anybody. I don't want to leave the wrong impression. I mean, anybody who knows how passionate Jim Irsay is knows that that's not the case. I mean, he asks a lot of questions, and he is demanding in his own way. But he also is not a guy who is impatient with his people. I mean, we know this. And that's why when he fired Frank Reich, I mean, he had not fired a coach mid-season, I don't believe, before that, right? So anyway, I think what he is saying is his true feelings, because he has consistently been he has maintained that same position for many, many years on Chris Ballard through thick and thin. So I don't see any reason to not believe him now.
Well, Steven, if you're like me, when you get done on the 53-man roster prediction today, you'll literally look at your computer and say, I hate this. There's no chance this is what I wanted to do. Every single time I get done with it, that's my immediate first thought.
100%. I will probably be day drinking today, okay? Because I told somebody,
there we go.
I told one of our colleagues, I said, I care too much. I should just do it and just, like, send it in and not care. I care too much because I hate being wrong, you know?
Kegs and eggs at the Holder household coming up later today. Steven, thank you for the time, man. We will see you later this week.
All right, guys. See you.
That's Steven Holder, Payless Liquors Hotline. One thing to add, you brought out the old upper quartile, I believe, earlier. Again, Jim Irsay, blue chip GM. It's the reference to Chris Ballard on Saturday night. I believe, if my math is correct, 25 NFL teams have won a division title since the Colts last have. I think 21 have won a playoff game since the Colts last have. I'm no expert in math by any means. Ryan Bowen, far better math student in the Bowen household than his little brother was. Don't believe that qualifies as blue chip.
Yeah, I'm not either. I took dumb math all the way until into college. What's the dumbest math class what's the most basic math class I could take?
I did do
That's
okay
the one
at
I need.
finite freshman year at IU, which was a miracle, I felt like.
How many people were in that class? 800? I mean, it had to be one of those huge freshman classes.
There were definitely a couple hundred.
Yeah, that's what
there.
I figured.
Math for everyday living.
Everyday living. That's the Andy Sweetie math. A couple different things, just local things I wanted to throw out football-wise. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. You know, Tyrone Tracy, the former Purdue player, got injured in Giants camp. He did a press conference yesterday, so he's going to be good. He's going to be good to go. I don't know if he may miss a game or two, kind of like Josh Downs at the beginning of the season, but he should be good to go. He said people around the facility were calling him Paul Pierce because he got carried.
Carted off, right?
He got carted off.
Yeah.
If you remember Paul Pierce in the wheelchair and everything else, and he comes
always
back to play.
When a Colts player gets hurt at Grand Park, it's like 1,000-yard walk into the facility.
So it's like a half mile. Yeah,
I would love a golf cart ride, frankly.
We took a golf cart when we went over when it rained the day in training camp. So we had people help. So that's number one, kind of a local thing. Number two, ESPN's doing this, and I think it's now finally over. They did 24 hours of fantasy football. Adam Schefter last night drafted Anthony Richardson as the first quarterback off the board. And then finally...
First quarterback of the whole draft?
First quarterback off the board went to Adam Schefter. I don't know which round. I can look it up. I think it was like 5th round. He took AR. And then you had your auction league last night. So were you guys done by midnight last night?
I bailed at about 10:15. I think I had...
So you were done.
I think I had 4 or 5 roster spots. Yeah.
So 4 or 5 left or 4 or 5 completed?
Left. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
that's
I had like $13 left of the $250.
So it didn't matter.
Yeah. I just what one of my buddies was just so smart. Just spend big, and by 8:18 you can get under the covers. You got $15 left. You got all your chips of Justin Jefferson and Saquon Barkley and whoever, and you pray no injuries occur, and then you move on. Whereas I'm like, boy, I feel like I'm getting outbid a lot. I might have to stay up later than I thought.
Have to stay up later for the final rounds to put $8 on Deontay Johnson.
The fantasy Dave Richard from CBS Sports going to join us tomorrow.
Oh, so, nice. Good.
If you guys got any fantasy football thoughts, questions, draft philosophies, send them our way. We'll ask that with Dave tomorrow. And Mark, probably tomorrow we can hand out another ownership?
Yeah, we got, I think, 5 left. So
tomorrow we will hand that out. Again, a couple weeks away from our draft. I think one thing I did want to double back on is, maybe we haven't been as pressing about safety here in recent days. It's kind of like, okay, Julian Blackmon, Nick Cross. Like, let's just get used to that being the starting lineup. I do think, and this is maybe in reference, Mark brought up, a free agent signing earlier. We saw Justin Simmons go for 1 year and $8 million last week with the Falcons. So, some people have had this question of, do the Colts value safety? Chris Ballard has been a big advocate for, of course, trench play. He really values that. And I know the Colts haven't handed out massive safety contracts in free agency, but I do think there is a bit of a misnomer of, like, if you look at Chris Ballard's draft history, he is valued safety.
Right.
Don't confuse that. I mean, he drafted Malik Hooker with his first ever draft pick, 15 overall. Okay, if you want to sit there and be like, hey, Malik Hooker, that's Chuck Pagano era, don't bring that up. I think Chris Ballard has traded up. I want to say he's traded up 4, maybe 5 times in his draft history. He's traded back like 20 times in his draft history. He traded up for Kari Willis, 20 spots to take a safety. He traded a 3rd-round pick in a future draft to draft Nick Cross a couple years ago. He drafted Julian Blackmon coming off a torn ACL.
Yep.
So that to me, and we're talking Hooker 1st round, Blackmon 3rd round, Cross and Willis 4th round. I mean, that to me is some notable value there at the position. So I guess I bring that up to go back to why I'm confused and borderline a bit maddening on why they have gone this route in the secondary, because I don't get it. Wide receiver, he's indicated at times there's not an immense amount of value there as some other positions, but there is a track record at safety, at least draft-wise, where he's put some notable draft capital. He's traded up twice there, where he's barely done that anywhere else. So I guess I just bring all that up to say it's just further confusion for me on where we're at right now.
Well, I think people say that because he hasn't went out and paid a safety, but you can't, or big money. But the NFL doesn't value safety at the very top, right? I mean, we saw one safety in this free agent market this past season get legit money. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, your guy, right? Xavier McKinney with the Giants?
Yeah, McKinney got big money with the Green Bay Packers.
And multi-year.
Yeah, and he's very good, but I thought they overpaid for him. I mean, I think when you look at the rest of, the safety market, I told you last week, it's a scary what if, but, Julian Blackmon was able to hit the free agent market this offseason. I mean, I can't even, and I know they would have eventually went out and got somebody free agent. Maybe it changes what they did in the draft in April, but I mean, right now, imagine this secondary, and it can happen with injuries, but imagine if we were talking about this secondary right now without Julian Blackmon. I mean, we'd be talking about them having to get a couple guys in there that were new. I mean, he would have had to have gone out and draft, again, free agency and made some sort of move. But it's important to remember that just a few months ago, Julian Blackmon hit the open market and came back to the Colts on just a 1-year deal. I mean, we're going to go through the entire safety conversation again. And if Nick Cross isn't good this season, or he spends this season injured, or whatever it may be, I mean, we're going to go into the offseason with questions with Nick Cross entering year 4 and Julian Blackmon being a free agent yet again. If he has a good season, I mean, you would imagine at some point someone in the NFL would want the guy, especially if he's healthy.
Kyle Netter from the Star, he's going to join us here coming up in 5 minutes. He has put out his predictions for the high school football season. I'll pray for Kyle's emails from parents after he just sent that out. The one and only Lin Dunn at 9 o'clock. Before all that, let's go ahead and hit a morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown.
Omaha! Omaha! Omaha!
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, so Colts and Bengals, a joint practice yesterday. Obviously, we've talked a ton about that. A slow start to the offense. At one point, Anthony Richardson just 3 of 10 with an interception. Was hearing the chirping from the Bengals defensive players. Turn things around later on. So pretty good day, seemingly, for the defense. Bend but don't break as well. We talked about safeties, and let's stay there. Shane Steichen was asked about rotating safeties, rotating Nick Cross and Julian Blackmon. Here's what he had to say.
With anything, like within a defense, right, if you're in a single high safeties look, you know what I mean? You might have a motion where someone rotates back to the middle and becomes the free. That's within the scheme of the defense. So those guys got to be ready to play in the box and play in the deep third.
Yeah, so not too much, obviously, from Steichen, but we'll see exactly how that works out. We think pretty much it's going to be Julian Blackmon and Nick Cross. Day off today. I'm sure everyone thrilled about that in Cincinnati. And then tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Colts-Bengals on nationally, Amazon Prime. Where is it locally?
Fox 59. Beautiful. Yeah, 10 of 21, Anthony Richardson yesterday. If you go off of the 12 days at Grand Park, I would think that qualifies as his least efficient day of camp there. But like you said, Joe Burrow, very efficient, 80%, but certainly when they got in the red zone, it sounded like the Colts defense more than held their own in keeping Cincinnati out of the end zone.
I would guess
Preseason finale coming up tomorrow night.
Most players probably aren't excited to be in Cincinnati for an extra day.
Probably
What are we
not.
supposed to do here?
We mega bus it back to Indy here for the night and then come down for the game tomorrow. Speaking of Cincinnati, the Reds got smoked last night in baseball. Locally, Cubs won, but the Cardinals lose.
The Cardinals had bases loaded with 1 out or no outs in the 9th inning and did not win and didn't get anything across.
Oh, darn it.
So it ended 3-2.
That does make me happy. Indians 2-1 losers to Columbus.
Yeah, other NFL nuggets. The only other thing I had, CeeDee Lamb productive talks there with the Dallas Cowboys. Niners remaining hopeful on Brandon Ayuk. So again, we're going to be inside 2 weeks after this weekend. And at some point today, Mark, you cut the sound, so we need to get to it at some point today. Brian Flores did answer back to all the Tua stuff, and he was rather gracious. He took the high road on it. I don't know if you saw any of that yesterday. Flores looking great. Had those big sunglasses glistening outside. He looked fantastic.
I saw 2 of his players walked up to the podium. His bodyguards.
Yeah, his bodyguards.
There. I thought his answer was fine, honestly.
Fine.
I thought he handled it pretty well. Did you see Zach Edey, John Morant working out? You
No.
see Ja throw that on the old social media?
I did not see that. Where are they at? Are they in Memphis?
I would
Beautiful
assume,
Memphis?
honestly, just good to see Zach Edey, back on the court, healthy enough to work out again. That one appearance for Zach Edey at Gainbridge Fieldhouse will be coming up in February of this year, but we're about a month away from NBA training camps.
It's getting close.
Started.
I'm starting to see all the ESPN's doing all the predictions and who's going to win MVP and all that. I'm like, man, we are close. Of course, the Pacers aren't on any of those.
Anytime John Moran is on social media, I get a little bit nervous about what I'm going to see.
He's been very complimentary of Zach Edey in his social media posts there. Just gone out of his way with that. One other item of note here for our IU Nation looking ahead to basketball season. It sounds like we'll get a bracket today for the battle for Atlantis.
Okay.
Now, I bring that up. Remember, we discussed IU's non-conference schedule a few weeks back. There's not a lot of substance.
Yeah, there's not much on it.
Gonzaga and Arizona are in the battle for Atlantis. Those are the two kind of marquee teams, so it would be very important, I think, for Indiana to try and find a win of note there because, again, there's not a lot outside of that, and really it's not as marquee, I think, of a tournament as it has been in years past, at least from a preseason standpoint. So it confuses me on why we wait so long. These select tournaments wait so long to announce their schedules.
It's silly.
But nonetheless, it looks like we'll get that later
Well,
today.
I mean, just in the last few days, we've had college basketball teams wrap up their schedule. So, I mean, that might be the answer. We're going into mid to late August almost before we get a full schedule. I mean, school started, and some basketball teams just wrapped up exactly what they're going to do. Kyle Nenrit from The Star. We'll talk some high school sports, everything getting underway this weekend, and we'll do so next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Wake up call on this Hump Day Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
1065. The Fan.
Looks like it's going to warm up a little bit for week 1 of high school football coming up Friday night. Boy, that tonight would just be an unreal night weather-wise. A little warmer, but no precipitation, so that is good news on that front. And speaking of high school football, no one has done it better than Kyle Nenrep. He joins us now here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Kyle, I'm going to throw out a number. Is this year 15, 14, 16? Am I close to it?
Man, now I'm going to have to you're going to make me do some math this morning. I think it's 17, actually.
Gosh,
so
17.
The start of 17. So you were close.
Well,
I might be wrong, though, so who knows?
Let me start off by saying thank you. I think I speak for many, many people. Your dedication, commitment to preps here locally, we shouldn't take it for granted. Not to get all sentimental on you, but, like, why have you done this for 17 years? I feel like, you've probably had opportunities to go to other beats. Like, what is it about this market? What is it about covering high school sports that you have done now for nearly 2 decades?
Man, yeah, I don't even think I hadn't thought much about that. That's a good question. I mean, I love. I've had a chance to cover other things. I had a couple of years where I covered colleges predominantly pretty early in my career, and just didn't enjoy it as much. I think preps has always been. I grew up around it. Going to games every Friday night, every basketball games. Played high school sports. Enjoyed it, and I love others. I don't sit around watching high school sports at home. I watch NBA, I watch college, watch NFL. So I'm a sports fan growing up. But as far as my personal life, I like covering high schools. It kind of gives you a little bit more of a normal life. I think you're in the community more regularly. You get to know people from a kind of a personal standpoint too, get to know, the kids that you cover, and then they go on and it's cool, for me, like when Kyle Guy puts on the Dizzy runs or, whatever, kids come back and I get a chance to reminisce with them. That always means a lot to me, not to me really, but just to kind of catch up with those kids that I covered. Now they're grown up and, so I think that, and the access you get at the high school level too. Like a lot of those kids I've talked to, most of them are one-on-one or getting to know them just, through after games or whatnot. But I just think the community aspect of it is what that probably is what it comes down to more than anything. And not to say, the Colts and Pacers and they're deeply embedded in the community too. But just, I think from a standpoint of covering, it's a better fit for me, I think. And it's, I guess, just what I enjoy the most, I would say.
He is Kyle Nenrep, again, from the Indianapolis Star. Week 1 of the high school football season starting on Friday. One of your latest, you've predicted all of the state football champions here, so I pray for your email inbox there and what the parents will covet. The hardest class you had to pick, just a note here from a local standpoint. You've got Ben Davis, Decatur, and New Pal, Lutheran, and Sheridan. Looks like 5 of the 6 classes you've got local teams holding up the trophy.
I'm a local homer. What can you say? I mean, but
they would say that in Fort Wayne and Evansville and South Bend about you, Kyle.
I know. It's all good. But yeah, it's not something my boss asked me, and jokingly I was like, can I wait till week 5 to do that? But and I reserve the right to go back and erase all this and do that. But and these are pretty safe picks, I would say, that I didn't pick a whole lot of, other than maybe Sheridan winning 1A. These are probably the chalk picks, and you always kind of skew towards the repeat winners, and Ben Davis would be that. Decatur would not. And that's an interesting class. Maybe that's the one that 5A is going to be different this year. But Decatur did make the championship last year, and Fort Wayne Snyder, who beat them, moved up and also lost quite a bit. So I might have picked Decatur anyway. Decatur has quite a bit coming back. But Warsaw has been a team, and I picked Warsaw to make the state finals, but I think that North in 5A is really interesting with Maryville, Valpo, Warsaw, teams that, especially Maryville and Valpo, teams that have really butted heads with the top teams in 5A and 6A really for a long time. So, I thought that was a pretty tough class. You also have East Central moving into 5A, which they were the back-to-back 4A champs. And again, they lost a ton of talent from that, including Mr. Football, Josh Ringer. So I don't know how they will, how this season will go for them. I'm sure they'll be good. They always are. But as far as the tournament goes, a little bit of a wild card. But I think that maybe 4A too. 4A is very good this year, especially locally. New Pal's ranked number 1 in the state poll this week, and Chittard's number 2. And Chittard, another team that's moving up from 3A. So, I think 4A and 5A were both tough. I ended up taking New Pal over Mishawaka, and Mishawaka is a team that, they've been really good over the course of many years, and of course a traditional power. But I think that north side of 4A, which has been a little bit weaker than the south, maybe the weaker of the. If you kind of halved each of the classes every year in the state finals, the north of 4A has kind of been obliterated quite a few times. But I think that side is going to be tougher this year. So, but 4A around here, I mean, almost every team in 4A is better than they were last year, I would say. And so that should make it a fun year in that class.
We're talking some high school sports, obviously high school football underway. Kyle Nedrip joins us from the Star on the Payless Liquors hotline. Listen, it might be one of the teams you mentioned within the last couple minutes, but if I could ask you this, a team last year, Kyle, who struggled but should be much better this year, and then flip it. Who was good last year, who might struggle a little bit this season, do you think?
I would say the first answer to me is pretty easy. I think Warren Central will be a team that, not that they, their record looks like they struggled a lot. They were 5-7 last year, but they were in a lot of games, and they played. I covered the Ben Davis Warren game, which is always, you can always kind of throw the records out with that one, but they probably should have won that game, or at least sent it to overtime. They ended up losing by 3 in a game. Ben Davis, kind of didn't play their best, but I thought Warren was the better team a lot of that game, and they bring back, their defense is very much legit. They were, very, very close with Center Grove last year in the regional. It was 14-0. It ended up, but I think their offense is going to be significantly better. I think their defense is going to be arguably the best in the state with their front line that they have with Shanklin and Burris and Javon Guess and Finch. I mean, they're just loaded up front. So, I think they're a team. If you look at the teams that were under 500 or right around 500, they're a team I think that could make a significant turn for the better this year. On the other end of that, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that maybe you just don't know, what they have exactly, like a HSE. I don't think they're going to take a huge step back, but they just don't have a lot of returners. But the ones they do have are in key spots. Their quarterback returns. So they've got some guys, like Chandler Weston and Mason Alexander, who are high-end talent players. So I don't think they're going to take a big step back, but there are some teams like that you do maybe, you wonder. They're just questions that have to be answered going into the season. And we'll start to find some of those out on Friday night.
And Kyle Nedrip, he claims it's year 17. We'll believe him on that. We're certainly very grateful to have him covering preps here for the Indianapolis Star.
Can I pause you for a second? Kyle, it's funny when you were like, I think it's year 17. I'm going to have to think about it. That's like me last week trying to remember how many years me and my wife have been married.
Ooh.
Like, what is this? Is this 6? Is this 7? What is this? I had no idea.
Backwards. I have to count backwards. It is 17 as I count backwards. I have to do that as well for our anniversary. Yeah. That's funny.
I had to rely on Facebook. Facebook helps on such things like that.
Not
KB.
something you maybe want to publicly admit on that.
It's okay.
I always thought, I'm thinking, boy, I felt like Kyle started my senior year of high school, not to date anyone anymore, but that would fall in about the 17-year category. Kyle, 2 questions you get asked a lot about, I know, but let's start here. You look at the schedules for Center Grove and Carmel football-wise. Center Grove, 3 out-of-state opponents. They play Westfield. They play Ben Davis. They play Cathedral. They play the Lawrence schools. Carmel, couple out-of-state opponents. They play Westfield. They play North Central. They play Ben Davis. They play Warren. When will we get these two playing each other? When will Center Grove and Carmel get back to playing each other?
Hopefully soon. I actually got a message this morning that, along those lines. So I don't know if that exact matchup, but I've heard some things about other matchups coming back to the schedule that actually have already. That Center Grove. If you look at their schedule last year compared to this year, it's better as far as the in-state opponents go. They only have 3 out-of-states this year, and one of those is Louisville Trinity, which I almost consider an in-state team. We know about Trinity around here. They always play good teams around here, so there's a good basis for knowing what you're getting into when you play them, and you kind of gauging where you're at. So, I almost throw them out. So, I think we're getting back to, hopefully at some point those teams do play each other, and I may have said this to you before, but when the series went away, I had messages from, some players, former players asking, that's a game we always, love on both sides, love playing that game. And, so from a standpoint of like when the players look back at their careers playing in that game, it's a big deal. The Copper Kettle game was always something that people look forward to. So I think moving forward, I don't know exactly where that stands. I'm hopeful that it gets back on the schedule. But if you look at it from a standpoint of, Center Grove's playing Westfield this year, that's great. Carmel's playing Westfield that in week 2. That's going to be a huge gate. Those teams playing each other, I think, is a great thing because you're going to get that's going to be a great atmosphere. Carmel Westfield, I think, is a rivalry that it makes a lot of sense. So. And Carmel's only got, they've got 2 out-of-state opponents as well this year. They're still playing a lot of their former MIC opponents throughout the season. I think Lawrence North came off the schedule this year, if I remember correctly. But other than that, they're playing, most of the teams that played in the past other than Center Grove. So, and then I think the addition of that Westfield game will be really, really good. I mean, I think that'll be a game that continues on. So, I guess the answer is I'm not exactly sure, but I think there's some positive momentum for maybe that game and then some others to come back in the near future.
Okay, you said year 17. If I threw out here in year 20, you have a one-time transfer, no eligibility questions whatsoever. Every athlete gets a one-time transfer in high school sports. And if I said by year 25 for you, you were covering high school athletes with NIL deals, what would you say to both of those?
That's it. I talked to Chris Nyhoff at the NFHS yesterday. That's a topic that actually came up, and I know some states, I think more 30-some states or somewhere around there have some sort of NIL, and I don't know how prevalent it really is, as far as I'm not sure it's become something that, kids are making money or anything, not a lot anyway. So I don't know even if they allow it, it's something that's really happening out there. But yeah, I mean, I Indiana, I sort of the one-time transfer thing. I think there's a whole lot of take a while to get into everything as far as the positives and negatives of it. I do sense that maybe there's some appetite for a one-time transfer after your freshman year, and then I don't think a one-time transfer at any point in your career is maybe going to happen. I'm just reading it as from talking to some people, including Paul Neidig, but I do know they're taking a look at the one-time transfer, and in addition to that, the transfer after freshman year, which could be something that makes some sense. I think the negative side of that, and some coaches have brought this up, is if you're allowed to transfer after your freshman year, basically no questions asked. If there is some sort of recruiting, I think the stipulation would be that you'd have to sit out, or if it was proved that they were recruited. But you're almost making your freshmen sort of free agents at that point, where it's like, they go out and have a good season, and then, if nobody finds anything out and you get them to go to your school, then you're off the hook. And so it almost kind of puts them in the portal to a certain extent as freshmen. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure where the winds of change move along so much anymore that it's hard to gauge where that will stand down the road. I do know the transfers is something that continues to be a hot topic, maybe more than anything right now. So, I think there's some, it may swing back the other way. I know West Virginia kind of opened their state up to one-time transfers, and from a story I read the other day, it's not really going very well. It's just become sort of just kind of all over the place. So I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be something that we'll continue to write about and talk about, and if there's anything that does happen, it may be that freshman year one-time transfer. And that's something that's been, even going back to when Bobby Cox was at the IHSA, something that was talked about but never really got to a point where they were voting it in. So, we'll see. I'm curious about that, though. I think that's something that, has some legs. I don't know how much, though.
Kyle, let's be honest. If this baby goes full NIL and we start having transfer stuff in high school, you're going to have whining coaches in your phone like you've never seen before. It's going to ruin your life, Kyle.
You're
going to
want to get off the beat, finally.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that may be the point to move on. But yeah, I don't. I'm not sure who would be. If you open up NIL, who's going to be paying. I get. I don't know if there, and I could be wrong. I mean, certainly that for the top kids, I'm sure there's some sort of appetite to raise money for them. But man, I'm not sure that seems like a slippery slope to go down to me.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly, but welcome to 2024, and you're going to be amazed by it. Kyle, thank you, man. Westfield, Center Grove tomorrow. Where are you at tomorrow or Friday?
I'm on the west side, BD and Cathedral. Clark Wade, our one of our staffers, will be out at Center Grove, Westfield. That should be a great one too. And then Chittard and Burbuff, I think, will be excellent as well. So there's quite a few good ones around here. Warren goes up to Snyder, which I'm curious about that game too, with Snyder being defending 5A champs.
Yeah, they got the Notre Dame commit, Brandon Logan, so just committed to Notre Dame, former baseball commit down at Vanderbilt. LC and LN on our airwaves. Eddie Garrison, Jim Leisure on the call for that. Kyle, great hearing you, man. Thanks for all your coverage. Looking forward to the football season.
Anytime, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
That's the great Kyle Nenrip right there from the start.
I'm not kidding. Any of that stuff, coaches are going to start whining like, you see Gundy and all the college, Saban quit all the college football coaches whining about NIL and transfers.
And first off, we all know high school coaches. If you look at the hourly rate that high school coaches are making to coach these sports,
right?
And you compare that to Mike Gundy.
To Mike Gundy.
Okay,
yeah.
Mike Gundy, you're making how much money? I think you can handle a little bit.
He's probably making $8 million a year.
Insert your head coach at some of these other high schools.
Right.
And not even, even if you don't play the NIL game, even the one-time transfer game, and, trying to build a program and trying to field a roster, these guys and gals are not making anywhere near the amount of money to put up with any of that.
We got to take a break, but I did read the article that he put up at the Star. I think it dropped this morning, 4 or 5 a.m. What would you do? He talked to 40 players in the area. What would you do with NIL money? And, the answers are mostly predictable.
Chick-fil-A for life.
Some guy was was Chipotle or Ruth Chris. You had a Yeezy Slides in there. You had a Trackman Jeep, or is that what it's called? Or a Trackhawk Jeep, I believe. You had, I'll get myself a Tesla. Do these guys know how much a Tesla cost? But I did love this one. Harrison Forrestal from Chittard. Hopefully I said that right. And I know he had to be joking, okay? At least I think he was. He goes, maybe I'll buy an Abercrombie and Fitch t-shirt.
Those are still in?
They can't be.
Hey,
are they? I'm asking. They can't be, right?
Harrison's, trying to make a good first-day impression on Jessica. He's got to wear uniforms to Chittard. He's thinking about it.
It's a a point.
He's thinking about date night.
It's one of those things, has that come all the way back around to being now in vogue, if you will?
When he goes to the Christ the King Festival, he wants to make sure he's looking good.
So that's good stuff. If you miss any of that, Cal Nenrip.
Abercrombie, boy.
You had not thought about that in 25 years, had you?
I can't say. Is that still the mall?
I just remember trying to walk past them. I'm like, is that store open? It's pitch black in there.
Yeah, I was always intimidated by it.
Remember the cologne?
No,
the cologne smell is what I remember.
Smells like $95.
Smells like Jake every morning.
That's fantastic. Oh, goodness. You miss any of that, you can find that conversation, 1075thefan.com. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 2 next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We're 5 minutes away from a Lin Dunn book update. Certainly appointment listening after last week. You see the TV ratings from Fever Storm over the weekend?
Dude, it's unbelievable.
Highly watched ABC WNBA game of all time.
Well, that wasn't the one. I need to try to find this because I swear to you, I thought I emailed that to everybody. But I mean, the one that's crazy is that the Ion game basically outrated everything, including WNBA Finals games. The game on Ion,
the Friday night
TV,
Mercury game.
the Friday night one. That one did great in the ratings as well. It was outrating stuff on basic TV. It's unbelievable.
Do you think we'll hit? You think the NFL will cause any of this to quiet down a little bit? I know the Fever have a couple of Sunday games, or do you see little mix in the major fan bases?
I think it will still be good numbers, but the NFL is going to eat into some stuff, right? It just has to. Yeah, the WNBA, I know they had to sit out for a month, but all these different sports, I know IndyCar learned. Basically, when the NFL starts, you want to be out of their way for the most part. Not totally. I mean, obviously, Major League Baseball will be around, and they can play on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Fridays and stuff like that. But anything that's on Sunday or Monday or even Thursday on Amazon, the NFL is gonna eat into that for sure.
We'll get back into Colts here after we chat with Lin Dunn. I did want to mention yesterday one update from that joint practice down there, Colts and Bengals. Shane Steichen said around 1.25 for his starters coming up tomorrow night. If you look at last year's third preseason game, the starters played the entire first half offensively. I mean, we're talking Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith and Michael Pittman Jr. About 6 series of work they got in the first half. And you look at the defense, they played about 25 to 30 snaps defensively. So, that would be, north of 3-4 series, 5 maybe, if you're able to get off the field pretty quickly. So those are some things to keep in mind as you look ahead. But the Bengals sounds like they will not play their starters coming up here tomorrow night. So, again,
it's a bummer.
It's just a bummer. I don't think that means Shane Steichen should all of a sudden not play his starters.
No,
but
not at all.
Obviously, I would like to see the Colts get that sort of competition in because I want to. Well, I don't know. Philly might have rested their guys last year as well.
Boy, I'm trying to think back to last year. I just can't. For some reason, I thought Jalen Hurts played, but I got to be honest, I really can't remember. We'll have to go back and look at the box score.
Some reason I'm picturing
game
Marcus
3.
Mariota against the Colts last year.
You're probably right. All right, final hour coming up, 9 o'clock hour on the other end. Lin Dunn, Fever GM. What does she think of the last 2 games coming out of the break? Why no action on the trade deadline? And we'll get a book update as well. Your Fever general manager, Lin Dunn, she joins us next here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, obviously, we'd love to talk about two-game win streak, TV ratings galore. Caitlin Clark sets a record. Lexi Hall, career night, or I should say career afternoon on Sunday. So many places to go with our next guest, Lin Dunn. But, Lin, we'd be remiss if we didn't start here. I mean, it's a quiet week in Fever World. Where are we at book-wise? What are we reading this week? What are we consuming?
Well, I've got all week now to catch up on my reading because we don't have a game till Saturday. So this is a good time for me to, touch base on all three of my areas. But let me tell you something. We got to talk about this starting this Olympic break, revisit here. We finished the Olympic break and we come out and we win 2 games over 2 teams that are currently in the playoffs, Phoenix and Seattle. So it was a great way to start this second half, and I'm really proud of the players, how intense and how focused they were, and in particular how we played against Seattle Sunday, and huge crowds and on ABC and broke all kind of records. So kudos to the team, kudos to the coaches.
You look at Lexi Hall as kind of an X factor for you, Lynn. I mean, that was obviously a career afternoon for her and certainly hit some big-time open shots for you late.
Well, anytime you hit 6 threes, I think she was 6 out of 7 from the 3, that's a big day. That's a big day for anybody. And the interesting thing for Lexi is, she struggled a little bit hitting her open shots this year. They've left her open, and now she made them pay with knocking them down. It was a real huge boost, for her, but it was wonderful to see how excited the rest of the team was for her.
Fever GM Lin Dunn with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. It's a wake-up call on the Fan on this Hump Day Wednesday. I got to ask you this, Coach. So Lexi did that, and she had family in town. I would imagine family that's not always seen her play live. Do you have a theory on that? Do you think players play better or worse when family might be in town? And did you play or coach better or worse if maybe you had family traveling from other states come see you play or coach? You have any theory on that?
Oh, Lord. I think it's mixed. I think some players respond really well to having their family there. And then I think other players, it makes them nervous. So it's a mixed bag there. It's been so long ago since I played, I think, it was 1964 or something like that, where I played a game. So it's hard for me to remember if anybody was even there.
What were you like as a player,
Fair
Coach?
Enough.
Oh, man, I was nasty. I fouled out of every game I ever played.
Is that 5 fouls or 6 fouls?
You were the enforcer.
Yeah. But 5 fouls. We played the old way where the court was divided in half. We couldn't go full court because they was afraid if we went full court, we'd sweat. If we sweated, we'd faint, we'd die. So they cut the court in half and made us play half court. But I have to admit, I was the foul queen. I was nasty. I was physical. I was competitive. I see a lot of me in Caitlin Clark. I was fiery, and yeah.
I was gonna compare you to Bill Lambier, but we'll go with Caitlin Clark on that. And
there you go. Lambier and I have a lot in common. Yes, we do.
Lin Dunn joins us now. It's funny you bring up Caitlin Clark. Obviously, she sets the assist record on Sunday. I remember watching her really for the first time of a full game at Iowa. Lin, I walked away from that game thinking, man, they show the volleyball line threes routinely. The passing is incredible. I mean, how would you describe maybe the first time you really witnessed her as a passer, the vision, the touch, all of those things?
It's exceptional. It's really hard. It's kind of unbelievable how she sees the game ahead, a second or two, where her player is going to be, and she's putting the ball there where the player is going to be. And it's the strength of her passes. Her arms and her hand strength is exceptional. And here's the other thing. I think people underestimated her speed and quickness. She is fast. She is fast with the ball. She is fast coming down the floor. She's getting by people. If she's driving by Kalia Copper and if she's driving by Jewel Lloyd, 2 Olympians, don't underestimate her speed and quickness.
That voice needs no introduction. She is Lin Dunn, the GM of the Fever. Trade deadline day coming past. Pretty quiet around the league as a whole. I think you kind of warned us of that last week. Were you guys close on anything, though?
There were some discussions, but they were light. I think what you saw yesterday didn't really impact anybody's team. Salary cap issues, hard cap has a factor, and I think a lot of the teams, especially the ones of us that are right close to a playoff spot, we don't want to tamper with our chemistry. Our team chemistry is good right now. Let's don't mess with it.
Lin Dunn with us, Fever Jam on the Payless Liquors hotline. Coach, I want to go back to the passing because, the assist numbers have been good all year, but they also haven't been this. And it feels like at some point, and this is kind of what I'm going to ask you, maybe in late June, the rest of the team figured, hey, Caitlin Clark can get us the ball. Here's what we need to do, and we need to be ready for her to get us the ball. When do you think that clicked for your team that, hey, we're playing with someone who is a little bit different when it comes to passing the basketball?
Well, I think June, July, and definitely through the extra practice time we had during the Olympic break, our players started to understand, okay, her passes are going to make me better. All I've got to do is run and get open, and she's going to get me the ball. And so I think once our players started to see how they could benefit from her passes, it was great. I mean, it's wonderful to see how they're now playing together and understanding what she can do and how she can make others better.
It is a week off for the Fever. 2 great wins out of the Olympic restart. They'll be in Minnesota. Start a bit of a stretch on the road. I think 4 of 5 on the road here upcoming for the Fever. Lin Dunn with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Lin, you brought up chemistry, trade deadline. There's been some discussion in the last week or so with Kelsey Mitchell in her contract year. Do you expect Kelsey Mitchell to remain with you guys after the season?
We're still in negotiations with Kelsey. We are thrilled with the season that she's having. We're really positive about how we're seeing Clark and Mitchell start to play well together. I mean, what a great backcourt. So we're going to continue to talk with Kelsey, see what we can do about an extension in the future. But those talks are ongoing.
Coach, I'll ask you this to wrap things up. All-Star game, I think, KB, if I'm not mistaken, it was officially announced after.
Yeah, the day after.
I think it was the day after. The rumors were out there, so we did not ask you last week about the WNBA All-Star coming next year to Indianapolis. Obviously, that's a huge deal. How exciting is that for you, the Fever, Caitlin Clark, and everybody else?
It's wonderful experience for the Indianapolis community. Look what we did with the NBA All-Star, and I'm convinced that Pacer Sports and Entertainment, the leadership that we have over there with Mel Raines now in charge, that we're going to have the very best WNBA All-Star they've ever had. It's coming to Indy. Tickets are going to go on sale soon. You better go ahead and get in line because I'm telling you, in 48 hours after they go on sale, it may be sold out. It's going to be standing room only, and it's going to be a major event here in Indy.
Coach, from your vantage point into the game Sunday, any clarity on that? Looked like Christy Sides and Seattle's head coach had a couple words there at the end of the game. Any clarity on that?
The only thing I can say is it looked like to me that as the game was coming to the end, the officials kind of got lost and didn't know what was going on, and it's unfortunate. We don't even know what was going on at the half court, and I don't think Christy still knows what they seem to have a burr up their butt about something. So, maybe it's because we beat them by what? I don't know, 20 and they'd beaten us. They'd ripped us earlier in the season a couple of times, and we took it on the chin, and then we were able to come back, in the game Sunday and kind of turn it around on them. So I don't know if that was what it was about, but hey, that's in the past. We're focused on Minnesota now, and they're very good, and they're a top 4 team, and we're going in there to play them Saturday, and it's also the day that they're retiring their great player Maya Moore's jersey. So it'll be a big crowd.
Certainly mean a lot to Caitlin Clark. Obviously, a lot of Iowa fans were at that first game there. I'd expect that as well. All right, Coach, as we leave you here, just in case any kids are in the car, we'll describe it as romance, murder, leadership. Where's the focus this week, Lin Dunn, book-wise?
Romance. Come on, romance. We know what romance means. I'm focused on leadership this week.
Okay.
My book this week is Super Communicators.
Okay.
And so if you want to improve your communication skills, look up that book, Super Communicators. That's the one I'm recommending this week if you're interested in leadership.
How to Unlock the Secret Language. Is this it?
Yeah, there you go.
I've got it right here. I've got it right here. Okay. All right,
That's
Coach.
my recommendation for the week.
All right. I'm gonna look into it and get the Cliff Notes version, and we can chat about it next week. All right.
Well, we can go romance next week if you want.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes.
I'll certainly have my wife make sure she's listening. See you, Coach.
All right. Well, you better filter out the children then if we're going romance. Yeah.
Safe travels to Minnesota, Coach. Good luck Saturday.
Okay, go Fever.
That is the great Lin Dunn right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. I've got it right here. Charles Dewing, if I'm pronouncing that last name right there.
Yes, yeah,
Here we
that's
go.
it. I'm saying I can get for $13 at Walmart. The audiobook's $11. By the way, the Burr
This sounds great. Come inside a jury room as one juror leads a starkly divided room to consensus.
I like that. Burr up the butt. I did look that up. It's
yeah.
more the burr up the ass if you look it up on the internet, obviously.
She didn't like me using romance.
No.
I was just thinking about some kids in the car. I don't know.
The website
Apologies
says
there.
if you have a burr up your ass, you are very upset about something that has happened and intend to do something about it to correct it. So there you go, a burr up the butt.
We're going to need a highlight reel of Lin Dunn on the court. Can we get that?
It's got to be out.
Caitlin Clark, Bill
Lambier.
Lambier. We need that. Somehow, some way.
I kept
It's
thinking,
got to
like,
be out there.
how did rebounds work? Like, you got rebound, then you had to go back to half court to check. Like, how did everything work?
That's pretty pathetic. That honestly, that's what it was back then. Thankfully, things have changed, and thank you to Lin Dunn, among others, that certainly spearheaded a lot of that change here. But again, the Fever, great work over the weekend. Nothing at the trade deadline yesterday. Sounds like, I don't know, that sounded optimistic on Kelsey Mitchell. Did it not to you?
No, it was a PR statement.
I think a little optimism in the PR statement.
I think if you're Kelsey Mitchell, you have to understand also, kind of what's getting ready, what's happening here, and what the future is going to hold for the Fever. Because the Fever's future is, as we talk about sports franchises in this area. I mean, I expect them sooner rather than later to be at the top of the WNBA and to be playing deep into the final, or deep to the finals, basically. I mean, don't you? With what they have, and she's obviously a big part of it. And Caitlin Clark, she gets you that basketball. It used to be 6 or 7 assists a game, and now it's double figures just about every single night.
Again, Fever at 8 o'clock, I believe. Obviously,
It's a
Maya
late one.
Mora, for those that missed it, back at the Iowa days, that's Caitlin Clark's, kind of the big role model for her growing up. That scene of College Game Day when Maya Mora surprised Caitlin Clark. Pretty cool moment to see how giddy Caitlin was in meeting her. So that should be an awesome atmosphere coming up Saturday night. Again, a lot of road games upcoming, and then, boy, September is loaded at home for the Indiana Fever.
Let me ask you this. So obviously, transitioning to the Colts, and we'll get to the pop quiz coming up here in about a half an hour. Anthony Richardson started out slow. He was 3 of 10, had an interception, chirping from the Bengals and everything else. We do expect, and Shane Steichen said as much, that starters will play about a quarter and a half. Some might be a little bit less, some might be a little bit more, meaning, some may get to halftime. It does not sound at all that any of them will be there in the second half. This is more of a tomorrow topic, but just to preview, do you already have a thing or two that you do want to see in that preseason game on Thursday? Because so many preseason items can have a qualifier next to it. Regular season doesn't have that. Is there something you're like, it would be nice to see the Colts do this or that tomorrow night?
Yeah, throw with anticipation, be accurate, better timing in the passing game. I thought in the small sample size of the Week 1 preseason game, Anthony Richardson, the passing offense, had none of that. Again, emphasize small sample size. Let me be abundantly clear on that. But you didn't sniff that. And if you look at yesterday, for what it's worth, 10 of 21 is an ugly number.
Yeah, it's not good enough,
now,
right?
It sounded like a root of some of the early issues was offensive line related, which, as I said to you earlier in the show, Andy, that's a non-starter. Like that.
They have to be good.
That group, O-line and D-line, you have got to have that pass rush helmet. And it does sound like the pass rush had some moments yesterday. You need that. You need your offensive line to be the 2023 unit because you have questions elsewhere on each side of the ball that are not related to those two units. So I'll start there. Now, again, unfortunately, it sounds like Cincinnati starters will not play. So I just can't go to the defense too much in terms of an evaluation period. Obviously, you'd like to see them do what? You'd like to see them be in full control. If it's your ones versus their twos, you want to see that defense off the field early, creating some plays, showing a playmaking ability that you need to have be a little bit more consistent. So I guess I'd go offensively, better timing in the passing game. Defensively, frankly, I'd like to see some dominance, especially if you're going to say,
especially if you see backups.
Look at their
Jake
backups.
Browning.
Yeah.
We need to check this out. I meant to. I always forget Jake Browning's name because I sat here. I'm like, who's the guy we talked about? Is Jake Browning still with the young lady that he was with earlier? Do we have any? Do we have any confirmation on that? If you remember
Lin
last
Dunn
year,
will inform me a little bit more next week when we get into romance. But if I'm worried about if Jake Browning's still with his,
that's what I'm worried about.
His significant other, I probably got to look in the mirror.
Yeah, you're worried about anticipation on the throws. I'm not worried about any of that.
Next Saturday at Kyle Field, and you're over here looking at.
I know you are
looking at this woman in the what was it, a cat suit she wore last year?
Yeah, it was a cat suit. What was a full bodysuit? Are you feeling better about Notre Dame or worse?
It looked like something you'd wear during COVID if she had the thing that could go over her full face.
Hey, you're right. You're exactly right.
I'm nervous about Notre Dame. How many times I got to say this? They're an underdog.
I know. 2 days ago, you seemed to be really nervous. I didn't know if 48 hours had changed anything at all. Okay.
No, I'm sweating over here.
I think you'll be fine.
I think you'll be fine. Are they still together?
Yeah, they are still together, and yes, I found her. Yep.
All right.
Yep, Stephanie Niles.
That was probably a short search for you.
It really was. I had it bookmarked. The cookies on my internet reminded me of what that was when I looked it up last year.
If those cookies could talk, man.
Let's hope they don't. You got to clear them out every month.
Some of that content might be blocked in the state this time today.
Other Bengals quarterbacks of notes. Rocky Lombardi. You remember him at Northern Illinois? He was kind of one of the mid-major darlings.
Rocky Lombardi.
Did he transfer? I want to say transfer from Michigan State.
Why don't I remember Rocky Lombardi? It's such a great name. Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking. No, that's right. He's with Northern Illinois.
Logan Woodside, the other quarterback you could begin to look at. Anything else stand out to you yesterday from a joint practice standpoint? We should mention Matt Gay. By all accounts, had a nice day kicking it. Very accurate, and that, of course, is something to keep an eye on. I wouldn't mind at all. I know it's not necessarily with the starters, but I'm running Matt Gay at every field. If you get 4th and 1 with Ellinger, Bean, or Slovis at quarterback,
listen,
you better not go for it. You kick the field goal every damn time.
Don't give it to Evan Hall.
I would argue Anthony Richardson at 4th and 4. I'm still kicking the field goal.
I think I'm with you at this point.
I know you're laughing, but I'm dead serious with it.
Listen, I only laugh because we're talking about it. And the field goal.
Well, because if you're not laughing, you're probably crying.
You might be crying. And the field goal, the goalposts were leaning to the left yesterday. I know that's in JMV's radio tease for today. So I would say the slow start and the fact that when they go fast, when they're playing fast, the stark difference there, and also how that seems to get Anthony Richardson going. We have seen that now in a year plus with Shane Steichen. So I find that interesting. And then, I did ask Stephen Holder about this, not the Jelani Woods injury, although the Jelani Woods injury is important and it definitely changes the way we view the 53-man roster. I guess I'm just the Juju Brents injury. I don't expect him to play on Thursday. I don't know. You may disagree with that.
He was out yesterday.
He was out yesterday.
Some stitches on the nose, I believe the reports from down there.
And again, I feel like it's mostly nothing, but it's just, it's a guy that played 9 games last year, and they need him.
You can't say that.
I know.
Like with him,
he needs the reps.
Every little thing is something. I brought it up last hour. He's out there for what, a series or 2 on Saturday night, and it's a defensive pass interference. Against Arizona's
It was the first play of the game.
Yeah. So, you just, it is something. Now on the injury front, sounded like Josh Downs, no Scooter, a little bit of a limp. I believe Nate Atkins had reported there. Let's go with the calendar. Okay. Today is Wednesday, August 21st. We are 2 weeks removed from the Josh Downs injury. We are 2 weeks away from the first Houston Texan practice.
Right.
So that timetable was originally 4 to 6 weeks. We're right at the halfway point of 4 weeks. 2 weeks to ramp it up from a running standpoint. Maybe week 1. I don't know. I'm trying to play it out here. Or Are we not going to week 1?
Well, let me ask you this.
I guess if he's limping, he's probably not running anytime soon.
I'm still very much 50-50 if he plays week 1. I guess the only thing I would harken back to would be when we had him on a couple weeks ago. This is about a week or so before the injury. Remember we had Josh Downs on, and he talked about the prep for that New England game overseas, where I don't want to say the Colts pressured him, but, I mean, the Colts were very much like, hey, you going to play? Hey, can you play? Hey, you going to play? You're going to give it, hey, I got 12 plays for you, that sort of thing. And he really toughed it out, not only last year. He talked about having the knee injury last year, but he toughed it out seemingly in that New England week. During that New England week, the only caveat is that's when you're in the middle of the season, you're going to have a bye the next week, and you're fighting for the playoffs. This is week 1. But this week 1 we know matters, being against the Houston Texans, and Josh Downs very well could have been the offensive MVP in training camp had he not been injured. So it's a long way of me saying it's very much 50-50, but he did gut it out last year. But does that change given that it's just week 1? To me, the Colts probably do look at that much differently, do they not?
Because he's missed, 2 weeks right now. In all likelihood, he's going to miss 3 or 4 weeks. He obviously missed no time last year outside of just a couple practices leading into that New England
He's a guy, though, that could practice Friday and still play on that Sunday.
But missing a full month, though?
That's my question.
No, I can't go that route.
So he needs to be on the field.
I think he needs at least a full week of practice.
He needs to be on the field by that Wednesday. In 2 weeks, he needs to be on the practice field. Right? Given that it's week 1 to feel like he's going to play. I think that's fair. I do.
Especially if you're carving out a 17-game schedule here. And, Chris Ballard is always one that, we know week 1 is huge for this season, but it's a long season. And, there is a ton of validity behind that there, especially for an injury that it can linger. And it can, pop up. Think about T.Y. Hilton in that one season where he battled all those different ankle issues. For those that missed it yesterday, it was announced. Do we have the Shane Steichen audio on Jelani Woods?
I actually don't think we do.
It was actually kind of the most that he had actually said, like, he's going to miss some time, which, in Shane Steichen injury updates, that's like, cue the breaking news sounder.
The word you never want to hear is indefinitely. It's a scary word in sports.
Significant, you heard yesterday, indefinitely. Joel A. Erickson reported surgery for Jelani Woods in that toe. Mentioned this a couple times throughout this morning, but again, for those that have missed it, in hearing that news, albeit obviously unfortunate, I think it solves any sort of tight end debate we've had. You're 6 days away from roster cuts. I think you keep 4. Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, and then Will Mallory, who sounded like he had a nice day yesterday. So now it becomes this, Andy. You put Woods on injured reserve. You see this toe surgery rehab play out. You see if he can return in 2024. Again, the rule change this year allows for 2 players to be designated as IR to return before roster cuts. You don't have to place that guy on the 53-man roster initially like you did last year with Woods. And now we just delay the Jelani Woods debate for seemingly a month, 2 months, 3 months. Whenever he's going to come back. That's how I view tight end right now. So in a weird way, I think this takes all the tight end stress. Again, in an unfortunate, weird way, it takes all the tight end stress debate off the board.
Yeah, it was a bad day yesterday for Jelani Woods, and seemingly it was a good day for Will Mallory. I mean, Jelani Woods needing surgery, I hate to say that, but that you would imagine opens up a roster spot for him. And, I think, all the reports, obviously we didn't see it, all the reports that Will Mallory had a pretty good day yesterday as well on the field catching the football. So a good day for him, and just it continues to be now, I hate to say it, a year and a half, almost 2 years of kind of just frustration that Jelani's unable to stay healthy.
We're going to dust off a little I Gotta Know coming up here, Mark Dykton.
I've never played this. I'm ready to go.
Oh, are you losing the old V card here? So I Gotta Know?
That could be a dangerous game considering Lin Dunn's book recommendations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's got me in the romance mood all of a sudden.
Listen, if Lin Dunn says read this romance novel, I think as a show we're going to have to read the novel in a week, are we not? Like, we can't BS our way through. We got to read the romance novel.
And I know. I feel like if I cliff note it, she'll just rip me apart.
She'll know. Some teachers you could get away with. Then some, you remember the teachers that had things in there that if you didn't read the book, the movie and the cliff notes, they're not going to help you.
Well, now there's AI. You could just do Chat GP or whatever it's called and say, hey, read me this book, or give me the cliff notes version of it.
What's the acronym there for the old chat?
The door closes. The man is handsome. The woman is very attracted to him.
We'll do I Gotta Know. Mark Dykton, always entertaining with that. We'll do that here coming up in a bit. Pop quiz in a few, and by a few, I probably mean more like 15 or 20. 317-239-1070 for that. Andy Swinney, go ahead and lead us off in a check down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, let's start with Colts. Colts and Bengals joint practice yesterday. Off today are the Colts. A little day off there in Cincinnati. They go to the Newport Aquarium. I'm kidding. I don't know what they're going to do.
Do the shark walk. That thing is awesome.
And then
NFL players in the Newport Aquarium, that place will be filled to the brim. That place gets congested like none other.
You'd have to reinforce those ropes over that shark walk, though.
Oh, kids just everywhere. So, obviously,
point.
the game coming up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Now, Shane Steichen, how much will the starters play? He did address that yesterday.
Our starters will play about a quarter and a half, probably, give or take. I mean, some guys might play less, some guys might play more, but want to get those guys out there and run around on Thursday night.
Yeah, so they're going to play a quarter and a half. Some will play more, some will play less. So we shall see how much Anthony Richardson plays tomorrow. As for AR, Steichen excited AR and others will be out there tomorrow night.
I think that'll be great. I think it'll be really good for him. Anytime you can get out there in those game-like situations, it's good. Obviously, you want to be smart with these guys in the preseason because we got a long season ahead of us, but we're excited to get those guys out there on Thursday.
8 o'clock tomorrow night for our gamblers out there. Prayers, 6.5-point favorite, the Colts in this one. That is an Amazon game. Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit. Speaking of AI, are we getting Al Michaels AI or are we going to get actual Al Michaels tomorrow night?
I think we're getting actual Al Michaels.
You know he's going to have money on the game.
I'd say
you'll know very early.
If Herbstreit has to go there and then fly to Dublin, I think Al Michaels can be there in person.
Kaylee Hartung as well. Fox 59, the local broadcast for that one. This is it. Final camp practice was yesterday. Final preseason game of 2024. Roster cuts coming on Tuesday. 90-53. Speaking of 90, I think that's how many runs the Reds gave up yesterday.
Well, where are you going to go?
Mark Dykton deserves to play that. I don't disagree with that. Pathetic north of the border.
They've done really well since you were pumping them up a week ago.
Oh, goodness.
They're right there. They're right there with the Cardinals. They're right there with the Cardinals.
It was good for you. Brewers won 3-2 over the Cardinals. Cardinals had bases loaded. Yeah, they lost.
Come on, Joel Erickson.
Cubs,
Brewers.
there you go. How about that? Cubbies over the Tigers 3-1. Indianapolis Indians losers 2-1 last night in Columbus. That breaks their 6-game winning streak. Other NFL nuggets just quickly. Productive talk, says Jerry Jones, between CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see between that and Brandon Ayuk. Supposedly Brandon Ayuk and the Niners, again, have had those conversations about a long-term deal. We'll see what happens there. All right, you got one more?
Yeah, just to add this. Portland IndyCar race coming up Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Lee Diffie announced yesterday, the TV voice for NBC with IndyCar, permanently making the move to the NASCAR TV voice. Now, I think people will recall about a month ago it was announced that IndyCar is shifting to Fox starting next year. So Kevin Lee will pick up those play-by-play duties for the rest of the season. Kevin Lee has filled in for Lee Diffie at various points over the last year or so, but we'll have to wait and see on exactly who that is. Is it Adam Alexander? Is it Kevin Lee? Who will be that voice on Fox moving forward for IndyCar? And speaking of IndyCar, speaking of IMS, we mentioned this in the opening hour, but we did lose really an absolute icon, probably more of a behind-the-scenes icon to a lot of people here locally, but in the sports world, Bill York, at the variety of sports venues here in Indianapolis. He has really been an absolute legend. I'd say mostly from a statistical standpoint, but just a super nice dude. Remember our conversations inside of the Lucas Oil Stadium press box many times, and again, his history dates well back to IMS and the fairgrounds and Market Square, and an absolute legend to a lot of people in our industry. So thoughts and prayers with the York family at the passing of Bill York.
Yeah, no doubt. I didn't know him, but I definitely second that. The family going through some tough stuff there. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, I haven't played it. I got to know. Mark Dykton takes control of the show. We'll do it next. Pop quiz later on at about 9:45. So busy last half an hour here. Wake up call on this Wednesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tomorrow in the 9 o'clock hour, we'll get you set for your fantasy football drafts. Dave Richard of CBS Sports, the do's and don'ts. Any rookie quarterback. I was kind of curious where Caleb Williams would fall in our auction draft last night. He went relatively early at a significant price. Are there any others that you would take a flyer on, even as a backup, maybe late in the season? You bring that guy because you sometimes get in those playoff times. It's like, you don't want to start your rookie quarterback, but you might have an injury or your stud might be resting late in the year, and then boom, you might have to rely on that. So we'll do that coming up here tomorrow, and probably give out another fantasy football league owner spot.
Yeah, we need to do that. We have 5 or 6 left to
5
give
spots.
up. Yeah, ours is coming up in a couple weeks.
Let's do the Pick'em League again, Mark, if we haven't restarted that. But
sure.
Yeah, definitely restart the Pick'em League, and we'll send out that link as
Straight up winners. We don't want to do point spread and make it complicated for everybody.
Let's
just do straight up winners.
Yeah, come on now. We're not very smart here. Let's just go straight up
Let's just do winners. Speaking of, you're going to have fantasy football-wise, it's not crazy in the second round, maybe even early third round. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., both of those guys are getting taken second, third rounds every single time.
Yeah, both went with some juicy value last night in the auction league I was in. All right, it's a segment that we're going to dust off here. Mark Dykton's I Gotta Know.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies.
What?
High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you two punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on.
Wow, that was a throwback. I haven't heard that in a while.
I haven't heard that. That's like, listen to an old college game day intro there, Mark.
I know. It's not Jelly Roll, that's for sure.
But see, it's new to me, and I'm sure that means it's new to some of those in the audience.
That's true.
So I'm excited for this. Let's go.
All right, let's dust this bad boy off. I don't think either of you are aware of this, but today is the 1-year anniversary of the wake-up call.
Okay, well, we talked about this yesterday. I think we thought it was yesterday or Monday. Did we
today.
Not, KB? Oh, it's today.
So,
congratulations,
everybody.
I
looked up wedding anniversaries, and the first anniversary is supposed to be paper, which try to throw that at your significant other and see how that goes for you. But anyway, since it's paper and it's a 1-year anniversary of the show, what is one thing you'd write down as something you learned over this past year about your co-host?
Look at this. Oh, man, you're putting us on the spot here. Andy Swinney, you want to go first, or you?
I put him immediately
Would you like
on
me
the
to
spot.
go first?
I love it. I would say your love for Notre Dame. I would say your love for Notre Dame.
It is a problem, yeah.
Yeah. The Tiger Woods thing is one thing, but the Tiger Woods thing is unhealthy. The Notre Dame thing is not unhealthy.
Oh, speak for yourself.
It's a healthy sports relationship. The Tiger Woods thing's a little bit unhealthy. So that's a generic thing. I don't know. KB's a great guy. I didn't know you at all a year ago.
Yeah, I would go with my generic answer. I say this to people very often when they ask about Andy. Like,
oh boy,
work ethic is through the roof. Slight 180 from maybe the previous person that I sat next to in the mornings there. I'm sure he's not awake to hear that, so I'm good on that end. But in all seriousness, your Giants fandom is also, I would reference it, unhealthy. So I would probably go with both of those things.
Okay.
Extreme work ethic.
There we go.
And as much as he hates on my Tiger Woods fandom, look in the mirror about your Giants.
I know.
That's true.
It's easy. Look in the
it's
mirror.
almost like you've just thrown in the towel in the Giants.
Yeah,
well, no,
I'd say that's
I
fair.
just feel like people here, being new, I didn't want to be the guy that, thought, this guy doesn't know a damn thing about the Colts. Right now, I know infinitely more about the Colts than the 53-man roster of the New York Giants.
It's probably a good thing, to be quite honest.
It probably is a good thing, given that they win 6 games.
Well, that was very nice of you guys to talk nice about each other.
I will say I was a little disappointed
nice.
earlier today, speaking of getting to know either of you, and that both of you looked at me when I asked about backyard baseball. You never heard of it.
No. I had nothing for you.
We played in the
Wheeler,
cul-de-sac,
Pablo
but
Sanchez.
Nothing.
Ernie Steele.
No.
A game in Ekman Acres.
No.
Me and Mark.
Mikey Thomas's runny nose. Nothing?
I would say as a 1-year anniversary of the show, me and Mark helped you the least when you brought that up. Out of anything over the last year. I had nothing. I saw Mark's face. He had nothing.
I was trying to think maybe, but no. I had nothing.
Most 30-year-old-ish, and Andy just turned 40 sport fans.
I know.
Man, okay.
No.
Swing and a miss by me
Sorry
on
to
this Wednesday
disappoint
morning.
All right, now that we've said nice things about each other, let's get mean text messages to each other later today. You could change one thing about the Colts game day experience. What would it be?
You think it's just going to be text messages?
Well, maybe no one's got my number, I don't think.
Again,
so maybe I'll get it from you.
Again, the music was mentioned by Captain Zaire Franklin and great cornerback Kenny Moore. The music
side of
would
the building,
be
Kenny Moore. Let's further put them on the pedestal they deserve to be on, so people aren't ripping us anymore for that.
I don't know, Mark.
I think you got to find a happy medium between player music and fan music.
Yeah.
And I know it's easier said than done. You know, Mark, you brought this up yesterday. I don't know. Commercial breaks are more for the entertainment, in my opinion, the fan. And then once you get play to play in game, I think that's all player driven. Snap to snap, player driven. I'd like a little bit more general, like, animosity, hatred towards the opponent. It's funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They're like, yeah, if there is somebody like with their shirt off in the stands going nuts, we're told like not to show them on camera. I'm like,
really?
This is a football game.
Yeah, it's a
this
football
isn't
game.
an opera.
Yeah, some big fat guy. Yeah.
Like, show that person.
Yeah,
That's what gets
they show
the
it on the
crowd
TV
going.
broadcast.
So, you know, that's where I'd
I
probably
would say,
start.
why don't we do more of halftime entertainment? We only do that on Thanksgiving days. We only got Creed and Scott Stapp out there on Thanksgiving. Why not do that? You know, week 7, Jacksonville comes to town.
What do you mean?
You know?
We got the alumni cheerleaders out there for a game.
Yeah. The flag football against the mascots with the kids just getting
Blues birthday.
getting a
Everybody's
stick
coming in
shifted on
town and playing, you know, flag football game.
All right.
What would be your answer, Mark?
My answer would probably just be, I mean,
because again, you experience it more than I'm behind glass and a
I would
and a
say
press box.
I hate to kind of jump on the bandwagon, but the music probably needs to get updated just a little bit, or at least switch it up a little bit. But I feel like when people are noticing year after year, like the same songs get played over and over again, like there's not really been updates. That's when you kind of need to start listening.
And
a
I
little
probably
bit more.
can already predict our Anvil bangers for the year. Okay, let me see if I got this right. Okay, McAfee, check. Okay.
You know McAfee's got a date.
Okay, marquee Pacer player, check. Halliburton, marquee Fever player, Caitlin Clark, check.
Gotta be
okay.
Clark.
We'll scramble. We probably won't find anybody in a week, so we'll call Bill Brooks or Joe Wrights. That'll be a check. Maybe Jack Doyle.
No,
That'll be a check.
Jack Doyle's gonna be one.
Ring of Honor for Dallas Clark. That'll be a check.
What about T.Y.? Yeah, T.Y. Hilton. He'll be in town at some point.
T.Y. could be in town. Yes. That would be a check. Am I missing anybody?
No,
that's
Royal
it.
Rumble coming to town. Maybe get a WWE wrestler at some point.
It won't be Vince McMahon.
No, that better not be.
We'll probably get a veteran for salutes of service, something along that end there. So,
right.
those are Anvil bangers.
All
for
right,
the year.
similar to Hard Knocks and the quarterback and wide receivers documentary series, you can have a film crew follow around a single Colts player, front office person, or coach for a year. Who would it be and why?
Is there true serum or no?
Yeah, you get the full, uncut, uncensored everything.
Boy, that's a good one.
By the way,
That's
see
a
Notre
really
Dame's
good
doing
one.
a Peacock Hard Knocks? I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be riveting.
Starting next week. Did you
is that
see the
gonna be
trailer?
good?
Check out the trailer, Mark.
The LSU NIL thing looks pretty interesting.
You're going to think otherwise on that end.
I'll check
it
it out. I'll look.
Steichen for me, just because he's so buttoned up. And I know there's more in there. I mean, like, even when you chat with him just briefly, I probably chatted with him, I don't know, half dozen times in training camp just after practice during that day. And it's just like, as soon as that mic turns on, it is totally different. So it would probably be Steichen just because I think it's, again, so closed up in front of the cameras.
Yeah, Steichen's the answer. Ballard, I feel like we know a lot about. I feel like he doesn't,
Ballard and Irsay,
I think he opens up, obviously. I'll go player side. I was going to go Pittman Jr. because of the farm, but I think I'm going to go Zaire Franklin because he's got some crazy to him. He's driving, what did he pull up in the Lamborghini? Is that what he had when he pulled up to training camp? I feel like if I was going to have a lot of fun, I would go Zaire Franklin.
I thought you'd go with your guy, EJ Speed.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Franklin's already got some of the money. EJ Speed hasn't got the money yet. So I want to hang out and follow the guy who's already got a little bit of that cheddar, as the kids would say.
I don't know if I want a full season, but I wouldn't mind an episode of Quentin Nelson.
Okay. Yeah, he does the beer games with the other linemen around the NFL. He'd be a fun hang, I feel like. Our last one, non-sports related, a song that's a guilty pleasure that you normally wouldn't admit to. A song that you come on, you're like, oh, I'm going to sing this one windows up, but I really like this one.
Yeah, I belted out yesterday with Rosie, 1,000 Miles, Vanessa Carlton.
Oh, yeah.
No apologies on that end. Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is my biggest problem. I listen to a lot of very random, kind of metal music, punk music stuff. So if I brought up something, I don't know if you guys...
DJing at
yeah,
Lucas
I don't
Oil
know
Stadium.
if you guys would even know. I mean, Mark, you listen...
It'd be like me bringing up backyard baseball.
Does Blink-182 and singing along to Blink-182, would that count?
I mean, that's
Because
kind of weak, but that would count.
I miss
feel
them
like
in
our
Cambridge.
whole population is sung all the small things 1,000 times in their life.
A million times. That would probably be mine. And there's a little pop band out there, Mark, named Arm's Length. You should check them out. I like them as well.
Okay.
If people heard some of their songs, they're like, that
What
guy?
was the festival in Michigan you went to?
Tied Down.
Tied Down.
I did
that looked like you were tied down in that facility.
I did have one
I thought I was going to get a new co-host the next week. I didn't think he was coming back.
One of the sales guys did say, I looked up the lineup for that Tied Down. Did not look like anything I would want to be a part of. I'm like, yeah, well,
They're not
each
coming.
their own.
They're not coming to Ruoff anytime soon, or Cambridge Fieldhouse anytime soon.
I don't think so.
You throw any prime Britney Spears on,
sure.
and I'm probably singing that thing.
Yeah, the
You
nice
drive
thing
me
is-
crazy,
Oh, sure.
stronger.
All,
Let's go.
All of that stuff, that was right in the TRL days with Carson Daly. So I
that
mean,
show rocked back then.
oh yeah, I mean now
That was a bus when you got off the bus.
You sing along to Creed, but now Creed is cool. Like they were just in Ruoff. What was it, like a week and a half ago, something like that?
I also like that now that you're in the grocery stores, like all the music we like growing up is now what's always playing. Like I heard like Foo Fighters the other day. I heard Nirvana. I'm like, this is playing at Kroger. I kind of dig it.
Rosie's in peak, pop. Girl
Sure.
pop music. So
Sure.
I mean, right now it's like, wow, I can sing all these songs out loud, and she thinks I'm like kind of cool.
Dad. Yeah.
If you, I know we got to take a break. If you made me right now, I could still probably belt out a couple Fuel songs. Mark, remember
All right.
them?
Fuel's all right.
20 years ago. That would. I'm trying to think of the other one, but that Fuel. Remember Gangster's Paradise?
Of course.
Remember Weird
Yes.
Al did Amish Paradise?
Oh, I had that CD.
Certainly.
I might know every word to Amish Paradise.
I could certainly see that. If the Giants get on a winning streak, we're gonna need that at some point.
I'll do Amish Paradise if they get on a winning streak.
Daniel
so.
Jones gets NFC Offensive Player of the Year. You got to do
Oh,
it.
God.
Or
Offensive Player of the Week.
Off-
Come
yeah,
on,
week
now.
of the
Let's
week.
not go there.
Yeah, I
Let's
shouldn't have
settle
shot
down.
so high.
Yeah, that would be a dream.
All right, well, let's finish I Gotta Know and, shelve it for
All
another
right.
18 months.
No, well, good stuff. No, we'll do that a couple times a week for sure during the NFL season. All right, 317-239-1070. Let's get a pop quiz. Is Scotty here? I know he had some time
I
off.
think
He's
so.
working like a 15-hour day today. So
I think he's in the building.
Scotty has sent the pop quiz, 239-1070. We'll do it next year on this Wednesday.
speed? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Well, thank you to Brandon for chiming in here. The I Gotta Know segment, always one of my favorites. Love that you brought it back. Mark Titan, great work on that. We'll certainly sprinkle that in at different points here as we get back started into the football season. All right, this pop quiz looks like one of the shortest in the history. I have heard of all of the answers, which means I feel like there's a chance.
Yeah, and even the one that starts...
Short quiz, and I've heard of all the answers. That's kind of my prerequisites on the ease of the pop quiz.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And we got to go quickly here, but even when Scotty goes on this day in 1931, and we look down at the answers and we feel like we know the answers, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It is doable for the audience.
Doable for the audience is right. Mark Titan, give us a number 1 through 8.
Oh, let's go caller 2, which would be Justin.
Is Justin. Justin, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing today?
Justin, we are great. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Justin, you're going to get 4 or 5 right, all right?
Excellent.
Go ahead, Andy Sweeney.
All right, we got to be quick. Question number 1, Justin. The Colts preseason comes to an end tomorrow night, obviously in Cincinnati. To celebrate, here's some questions looking back at the 2023 NFL season. Which of the following teams did not make the playoffs last season? Rams, Packers, Steelers, Bengals.
Packers. No, Steelers.
You sure, Justin?
You sure?
Cincinnati.
Justin, I might retract what I said before
All
we
right,
started.
read them off one more time.
Justin, it's Cincinnati. We're going to move on.
You got it, Justin.
Chiefs beat the 49ers in Super Bowl 58 last February. Name one of the 2 teams that lost in the conference title games.
Buffalo.
Question number 3, the Colts were one of 5 NFL teams to finish with a record above 500 last season that did not make the playoffs. Name just one of the other 4.
Jacksonville.
There you go.
Justin, number 4, who led the NFL in passing yards last year? Was it Dak, Josh Allen, Tua, or Jared Goff?
Let's go Jared Goff.
All right, last one. Now we're going to baseball, away from the NFL. On this day in 1931, Babe Ruth became the first member of the 600 home run club in Major League Baseball. There are now a total of 9 players with 600 or more homers in their MLB careers. Which of the following players does not have 600 home runs in his career? Jim Thome, Frank Robinson, Sammy Sosa, Ken Griffey Jr.
Sammy Sosa.
Scotty, how many guys have at least 600?
Yeah, it's 9. Yeah, it's 9.
Oh, yeah, you put that in the question. I should probably listen. And we debated Aaron Judge is unlikely, given his age.
Yeah, he's already in his...
Even though he's the fastest to 300.
Yeah, is he, 32 maybe is Aaron Judge, or 31? So he's probably not going to make it.
Yeah, COVID year certainly knocked off a little bit, but... Yeah, that's just... boy, it's a group. It's just kind of hard to see with how the game has evolved. If we'll get many people in that, I guess, involved in a maybe non-steroid way. All right, Justin, I regretted saying you get 4 or 5. Boy, question number 1 was certainly a battle. Yes, the Bengals did not make the playoffs.
They did not.
And proud.
I guess if you want to jump to number 3, they would qualify as one of the 4 9-8
They
teams.
would. He got it Jacksonville. The other one, Seattle, and then this is the one I would not have been able to get, the Saints.
I don't know if I would have gotten Seattle, if I'm going to be honest. Ravens, Lions, not the Bills, in the losers of the conference championship game. Remember the Lions? Such a, heavily debated. And some of the decision-making from Dan Campbell and company in that one. Jared Goff, second on the NFL passing yard list last year. Tua. 46-24 for Tua.
In my opinion, that sucks.
Robinson, not at 600 homers.
I think Tua could lead the NFL in passing again this season.
I know. I wanted him last night. I didn't get it. I actually have Rodgers and Stafford. That's what I got last night.
Old man quarterbacks.
I know.
I was about to say, Dykton's not going to like that.
If healthy, pretty reliable.
Didn't you have Rodgers last year, Mark, and he screwed you by going out in the third play of the game?
No, I think I avoided. I had Garrett
Mark
Wilson,
picking
so that didn't help
Rodgers?
me.
For some reason, I thought he did. I don't know.
No.
I don't know where I got
I
that
would have had to
from.
been hammered to oblivion.
Yeah, I remember that week 1. JMV at 3, Query and Company at noon. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Podcast 1075thefan.com.